21 at 7 p.m. I call this meeting of the Wellfleet Select Board to order in accordance with the temporary suspension and enhancement of the open meeting law requirements by the General Court of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. First order of business is announcements, open sessions, and public comments. Public comments must be brief, and the board will not deliberate or vote on any matter raised solely during announcements and public comments. Do I see any? Helen?
Yeah, just an announcement that we're going to have an off schedule. The select board's going to have an off schedule meeting, which is a hearing on Monday, the 16th at 7 p.m. to discuss management of the large intertidal property acquired in 2019 known as the Hidelta property. Thank you.
All right, John?
Yeah, I just wanted to announce that I will be sitting in on or I may be sitting in on a Marina Advisory Committee meeting tomorrow.
Oh yeah, I need to announce something else, Ryan, I forgot.
Okay.
Yeah, both John and I will be at a meeting that is not a town municipal meeting of the Guapaka Association, which I go to every year that I'm on the board, and John is a member of it. So that's going to happen on Sunday, and I'm just announcing it in case anybody else shows up there. I'm usually the only select board member there. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? All right, so I just have one, and that is on the 24th, our next regularly scheduled select board meeting. We are going to have the Route 6 Main Street project on our agenda with representatives from Stantec as well. So I just wanted to make people aware of that. And seeing no other comments, I would like to move on to COVID-19 updates and recommendations. Hillary, if you may.
Sure. Just want to report we have 10 active cases. 2 more came in this afternoon in the past 2 weeks. So that's 10 active cases over the previous 2 weeks, going from today back 2 weeks. Going back a prior month, we've had 20 cases. So our case counts are higher than we've seen in the past year and a half. That being said, we did put out the request to businesses to require masking. Some followed, some did not. So at this point, the Board of Health will be meeting tomorrow night on a proposed mask mandate. It's very similar to what
I'm not remembering.
Provincetown and Truro have.
1 second, Hillary.
Sure.
Karen, can you?
Just happened.
Karen, can you mute the audience?
Why didn't you in the audience?
Karen, can you please? Okay, all right, we're just gonna have to deal with it, I guess.
That's okay.
Well, no, they need to be muted. And when they speak. So for somebody who said, why do they mute them? Is there's a lot of feedback over, and we hear reverb, and we hear other people in the room and phone calls. So no, it's important to mute 35 people.
I'll get it.
Okay.
You want me to mute everybody, correct?
Yeah.
Yes, and then you unmute.
No, not us.
Somebody just, yeah, there you go.
Janet, I want to do it.
Well, yeah, so you mute.
Okay,
Public.
I'm on it. I'm on it.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I'm on it. I'm just still letting people in. Sorry, I'm on it.
Okay.
All right, Hillary.
Is Hillary? Yeah,
Sorry, no, I'm here. Sorry. So the Board of Health will be meeting tomorrow at 5:30, Wednesday night at 5:30 on Zoom. The link can be found on the meeting calendar to discuss this draft mask mandate, which is up on the screen right now. As I said before, it's very similar to Trudeau's and Provincetown's, both who have a mask mandate in place at the moment. So this is what we're proposing, and the board will take a formal vote on it tomorrow evening.
Okay, Helen?
Yeah, so we're not going to meet again for a bit, and things are unfolding, and I would like to be coordinated with our neighboring towns because everybody goes back and forth. Would it be possible for us to vote to mandate this Board of Health draft requirement, this document, in the event that they recommend it? In other words, if they approve it, can we have a vote tonight that says it then goes into place so that we don't have to wait in order to do it?
Hillary?
So the Board of Health can just make the mandate on its own without the Select Board. So I think the Select Board could vote tonight to support the Board of Health in issuing a mask mandate. I think that's all you would need to do. I don't think you need to meet again to authorize it or approve it. If you like what you see, I think you can vote to support it for the Board of Health.
And I would be able
Okay.
to supply a motion if you wish, if the board wishes. Thank you.
Let me get to the other board members first here.
Yes.
John?
Didn't see any mention on here. There is mention of performance venue customers. What about performances? Performing artists.
So performing artists, we don't have performing artists in there because we know a number of performing artists can't wear masks to do their performances. So
Right.
that is not in there.
That's why I just was wondering if this ruled out public performances like vocals or wind instruments.
That is not the intention, no.
Okay. That's all I wondered.
Clearly, if someone's playing a piano, they could wear their mask, I think.
Right.
So,
I, on the other hand, cannot.
Okay, Mike?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that Hillary already basically stated it. The Board of Health has the statutory authority to institute this. So I would be comfortable supporting it. Although I have some reservations. I did talk to a select board member in Eastham, and they're also considering moving forward on something. My reservation's basically that, there's some consistency throughout the Cape because it's not a county or state mandate. These are town by town. And if there's a patchwork of towns doing completely different things, then I think it becomes problematic and, can potentially hurt the businesses of Wellfleet while other people travel back and forth to, say, a neighboring town to do something. But I think that it does appear to me like it's going in this direction. And when I heard that Truro instituted one, that makes me a little bit more supportive of going forward with this. And so I'd be happy to do that. I'm not comfortable actually taking action on this tonight. I'd prefer the Board of Health to do that. It is in their purview on health-related issues like this. And there may be amendments to it or whatever that the Board of Health sees fit to make. So I'd prefer to issue support.
Okay, and then the one thing I would say is that I would like to see a date that it would end on. I know that we can't really say for certain when that might be, but it could be like ends on, last day of September, unless renewed by the Board of Health or something along those lines. That's my only comment on it. And otherwise, Helen, are you
Yeah.
ready?
Yeah, I am ready. And the only thing I wanted to say, Ryan, you're right, but it's much easier for us to lift it than is it for the Board of Health to lift it with one meeting than it is to take it off and then put it back on if necessary. Do you see what I'm saying? We have no idea where we're going to be in September. I hope it will be better. So shall I make a motion to support the Board of Health's mask mandate as printed in our warrant and as otherwise amended? by
Second.
Health?
What was the last part?
Well, do you want me to put in there in
Yeah,
case?
I heard you, somebody spoke, I seconded it, but somebody spoke over me, I think.
Shall I
Support
leave-
the,
shall I leave that out?
Okay. Helen, can you just repeat the entirety of the motion again? Thank you.
Yes. I move to support the Board of Health's mask mandate as printed in our warrant.
It's not printed in our warrant, so that
Oh, yeah, it's not,
Excuse me, in our packet.
it's
Sorry.
not in our packet.
Oh, as printed,
as suggested or as
as
presented by the
printed
Board of Health.
in this document, which is now going to be part of our minutes. This document received okay, I move to support the Board of Health's 2000. Can we have the screen share back, please? July 5th,
So,
2021.
no,
Jesus
okay,
Christ.
yes.
Uh,
Mike,
Mr. Chair, can I just
Yes.
suggest that we make a motion to support a mask mandate from the Board of Health, period? And that way it covers what they pursue. And if we decide that we want to take further action beyond that, after they've decided what they want to do, that we can do that at that point. But, just, I think offering the support of making the mandate in and of itself is enough.
Okay, I would second that motion.
Okay.
The motion's been seconded. Any discussion?
Can I just offer for discussion? Sorry, I can't raise my hand when I'm screen sharing. I'm sorry.
Yep.
That this is the draft. So what we're looking at is the draft. The Board of Health will review the draft and finalize it at their meeting.
Yep. All right,
Okay,
roll call vote.
Janet, I.
John, I.
Mike,
I think I'm going to abstain from voting on this at the moment.
Ryan, I, Helen.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries 4 votes with 1 abstention. All right, so financial management work plan. So Charlie and Lisa, and I think Mary's on here. Yep, Mary's on here as well. So who's taking the bull by the horns here?
Hi, Ryan, it's Charlie.
Yep.
So I think I'll just make a couple of introductory comments, and then Mary will expand on the memo, and Lisa will add some elements, and of course, we'll be glad to answer any questions you have. So I will just tell the board that we've been working on Ernst on this project. It's as we've talked about in the past, there's a tremendous amount of work to do. And in the end, we're going to be really forensically going through a lot of detail, going back 2 full fiscal years. If someone's in a hurry, then this isn't going to happen overnight. I think you all know that. I think relative to this process as well, is the Department of Revenue was in last week and conducted interviews with myself and Lisa and Mary, and then your financial team in Town Hall. It's part of the financial management study that the Department of Revenue Division of Local Services is going to be doing on behalf of the town of Wellfleet. They had a full team, I think, I can't remember, 4 or 5 specialists in different areas in municipal finance down the whole day. It was a long, exhausting day, and got a lot of information. And as I've said it before, your staff has been involved and helpful. We appreciate that. And then they're going to be following this up with meetings with the select board members and a couple of members of the finance committee. The end result will be a report that they'll present to the select board at a future public meeting. It'll include a series of recommendations on actions and financial management policies that the board might want to consider. I don't have a timeline for that yet. I'm still working on that aspect of it. But anyway, as I say, we're making good progress. And maybe I'll just ask the chair to recognize Mary, and Mary can talk about the contents of this memo, and then Lisa can add some information in as well. Our goal is to update the select board at every other meeting, sort of much in the manner that we do the COVID updates. And the reason that we're doing this early in the meeting is just it's more economical for the town in terms of having Lisa and Mary sit through a full select board meeting. And of course, we'll be happy to answer any questions after. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Mary.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for having us tonight. We have submitted to you through Charlie the first of probably many memos that we'll be issuing to give you frequent updates on our progress. This is the first, and it's organized into sections relative to the work plan that we devised that you've seen previously. Also where we're starting to work on year end, because it's important for us to gather our information as we progress and draft and finalize reports that are required by the Department of Revenue for the certification of free cash and the setting of the tax rate. So as soon as we feel comfortable and we have numbers ready for reports, those are being prepared and uploaded to the DOR's website portal called Gateway. The last section is just, things that come up are going to be coming up for us as miscellaneous items from time to time. They're not integral to year-end reporting, nor were they things that were included in the management letter. So we had to sort of create a little category for that. So I would suspect going forward that we'll report on each of these areas to you and entertain any questions and requests for information that you might have. With respect to the work plan, I would proceed to say that we're working diligently at each of our visits to Town Hall and outside remotely on cash reconciliations. That was a material comment by the auditors. And, we can't underscore the importance of proper and accurate reconciliations of cash on a regular basis. So we've done a lot of funds already. I would consider that we would call them the major funds that the town has, which are all the stabilization funds. We're working on trust funds and escrow accounts. And then we're also going to deep dive into capital projects, because of course you realize that the capital projects are oftentimes funded by bond proceeds or in the short term and pay downs with bond anticipation notes. So there's millions of dollars involved in the capital projects coming from those proceeds, as well as state and federal grant funds. So it's important that we verify all of the balances that we have for our capital projects. And then we move into the debt profile. But it's all relative to cash and the money that the town has in its treasury at period end. We haven't found anything unexpected or extraordinary in our reviews so far. So, so it's going in a good direction for us, and we're proceeding through each and every fund and resolving for a comprehensive analysis and proof of cash. The next item that was in the management letter was relative to W-9s and proper vendor records in the VADAR system. That project is completed. The vendors were, we reached out to all vendors, the W-9s were updated so that we can be assured that at the end of the calendar year, all of the 1099s that need to be issued by the town of Wellfleet are issued timely and accurately. We check that box. We think we're good on that. With respect to recording interfund transfers and the contribution to the OPEB trust fund, we have made verifications in FY 2021 and the current year that has just opened for us. Interfund transfers, for anybody that isn't used to municipal terms, really refers in our game to funding sources for specific projects where money has to come basically from one bucket into another. And I guess the prime example would be your community preservation funds and how you move money from a bucket to appropriate it for a project, you move money into a budget, and then you identify other further projects down the road. And so that's what that refers to. The auditors recognized that there was commingling of stabilization funds on the town's records, and the law is clear about the creation and the handling of stabilization funds, such as they are their own bucket. We'll continue to maybe use that because it's a simple explanation, and nothing can come into the bucket or go out of the bucket without a town vote. So what we've done is we have performed a forensic analysis of all of your stabilization funds. We have made numerous entries to make sure that they are, the trial balance for each of them is appropriate and accurate. And we have created new funds for each of them so that they're completely separate, identifying each and every one of them separately, and going forward, they will stay separated. And if you create others, will know that you understand they need their own fund. The next item from the management letter was the maintaining a budget reconciliation and accounting for the general fund budget. The FY 20 and 21 budgets were reviewed in VADAR to see that it was all recorded and properly, and adjustments were made where necessary. The FY 22 budget, which was, as you all know, developed and completed in a very, very compressed time frame for the town of Wellfleet. Lisa Souvet did a lot of work to create new accounts for the general fund in order for the budget to be, once it was voted, to be recorded and operationally ready for the departments to carry on business for FY 22. She's done that. The end of July came and went already, and a summary report has been sent to the departments on their budget status, and they'll be getting detailed reports at the end of every month on their budgets. The next item, which is second to the last, is overlay and reserve for abatements. There seemed to be some difficulty with the recording of the overlay, and it didn't match the recap, which is the approved tax rate that the DOR approves for each and every town. So we performed our review of the years, and we've made corrections where necessary. And with regard to general ledger reporting and maintenance, we've talked already about reconciling numerous funds. As each fund has been reconciled and we confirm the cash, we've been reporting them into new funds or moving them forward with a different chart of accounts, so that we're sure that they stay in their lane, and we're advising the other finance officers of the town of new account structures so that they're reporting correctly on a regular basis, and also that they're starting to understand how they need to reconcile to VADAR and not just to their internal records in their department. So the funds are listed that we have done so far. There's probably another 10 to be added to that list at this point. And that really concludes our update on the work plan that was issued to you. And we just have a few more items on year-end balances and reports. Under debt service, we have reviewed the statement of indebtedness. That's a required DOR form, and it's been confirmed and uploaded to Gateway, and just waiting for the other reports that will be uploaded for setting the tax rate and calculating free cash. In concert with that, I have developed an amortization schedule that's used in communities that generally report comprehensive annual financial reports at the end of the year, and they're award-winning communities. What they have is best practices in every area of governing their community. And one of the practices that's common is a debt amortization schedule. And this schedule identifies all of the town's debt, defines it by fund, runs out the debt service for 10 or 20 years. And it's actually an incredible tool for developing a capital improvement budget, for understanding and seeing the debt burden from year to year, and really being able to make sound, purposeful judgments about the requests that come forward for capital projects, and understanding whether your community can really afford them at that time, or things have to be delayed or somehow massaged so that they're not so costly. It's really important for a community to understand what kind of debt service they can absorb from year to year and really still be able to balance their budget and have a tight operating scenario from one year to the next. So that's been developed for you, and that's Charlie has already been given that. So I think that will be really useful for everybody to use when you get to budget time next year to see where you really are at. Outstanding receivables have been reviewed. We're completing a reconciliation so that we can verify the numbers on June 30th, 2021. I think we're just working through that, and it's a lot of transactions and a lot of work, and but no surprises there either. We're just working through it and nothing unexpected. The miscellaneous item, last but not least, is just updating the board to let you know, and I think you're aware that Karen Murphy, who is your collector, worked diligently to prepare an advertisement for a tax taking, which appeared in Friday, I think it was Friday's edition of the Provincetown paper. And so she's proceeding with the next steps that are required by law and provided for by statute for the collector to be able to go to the next level in order to collect outstanding taxes. You don't want to have those hanging around for a number of years because titles become defective and some things become uncollectible. So Karen's worked really hard to try to catch up, and I think she's, by the end of this year, she'll be on track for a general process and a general timeline for pursuing delinquent taxes.
Okay. Lisa?
She might
Sorry,
be
you're muted.
muted. Actually, oh yeah, she's here.
No, she's here.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're muted, Lisa.
Hitting unmute.
There
Okay,
you go.
There you go.
I would just, I don't know if I could say anything better than what Mary just said. She's really has summed up the past 2 months that we've worked together. The previous five months was been, cleaning up fiscal 20 that I could find and 21 while projecting 22, working on the chart of accounts. We still have the water enterprise, the harbor enterprise, and some other little funds, CPC, to tie up with a bow. But I think Mary did a great job. We work together very well. Sometimes we work at town hall, sometimes we go to her house, because sometimes it's a little easier to get the job done quicker without being tapped on the shoulder all the time. So these monthly reports are going to be a great tool for you guys.
Okay. So before we get to the board, just so the board's aware, I met with Charlie, Lisa, Mary, and town council earlier today. Town council was going to draft a memo about basically where to what lines not to to cross when discussing this. So any discussion about individual departments, performances or employees is strictly out of bounds. And we cannot discuss any of that. So we can talk about what we're doing going forward. And otherwise, I would just ask the board to wait until we receive the memo from town council before going into a more or in general, we need to avoid crossing certain lines. So thank you. Mike? You're muted.
Charlie's got his hand up as well, maybe.
Oh, okay, I didn't see it. Charlie?
Well, I was just going to, yeah, thank you. Thank you, Ryan. So, you know, I think just a couple of little aspects that I'd just like to build on. Obviously, you know, really lucky to have Lisa and Mary here, and I'm very grateful for their efforts. It can't be understated. And I think one of the things when they talked about that we set up the new chart of accounts for the new fiscal year, and that we're going to be issuing reports, monthly reports to department heads and their staff, so they know the status of their operating budgets and things of that nature, is one of the things that Lisa has been working on them is the coding of bills. You know, you just don't submit your invoice to town hall and have town hall process it, because you know, then the discipline that you need in terms of your account structure to keep track of your budgets can get compromised. That's been a problem in the past. So that's one aspect that we're working on, is department heads code the bills. They submit it to town hall. We do review them, but we want them to learn how to use these new systems that they haven't had access through VADAR. I mean, there are reports that are valuable. They'll be able to use these going forward. And Mary, we're going to talk about it a little bit later, but Mary talked about Gateway and the process whereby we start providing critical data to the state in order to set the tax, you know, I'm sorry, yeah, to set the tax rate and ultimately end up with free cash. But that's a really important aspect that we're working on, and there's so much to be done. We'll talk about it in more detail later, but it's going to impact when we can talk about having a town meeting. And finally, I should have mentioned when the Department of Revenue Division of Local Services was here, they did give us a really nice financial forecasting tool that they had tailored and populated with a lot of data that the state has on Wellfleet, and that's going to save a lot of work on our behalf because of their efforts in putting this all together. So then, you know, Lisa, Mary, and I can work on that. And as we get into the fall and start talking about the budget process for the following year, this will be the tool that we use to work with the select board and the finance committee and the public to sort of talk about what will happen when we make certain decisions. So I just wanted to mention that forecasting tool is really robust, and I think it's going to be very helpful going forward. So I think that's all I have for the moment.
Okay, Mike?
Yeah, I just want to thank Charlie and Mary and Lisa for the work they're doing. I know it takes an immense amount of effort and work to go back and fix these problems. And if it's not clear to everybody, or if it hasn't been clear to everyone, I hope it's clear to everyone now that we have the right people in place to be doing this type of work for the town, and that we're moving in the right direction. And I just want to make that point. And I guess I had one question for Mary about the stabilization funds commingling. And that wasn't brought up in previous management letters. It was brought up in the last one. And I'm just wondering if that appears to be something that was set up in VADAR problematically, or if that was something that was happening prior to that, and the auditors missed it.
Mary?
So the funds in, so I'm not sure what happened before because I've never been able to see end period end reporting from BMSI, which is the prior financial software. But in the Vadar software, it was definitely two funds were set up inside of one fund, which is inappropriate.
Okay. All right. So I'm not gonna make assumptions, but it seems like if it wasn't brought up by the auditors, then maybe it came from the entry to Vadar in the past. So that was my only question, really.
Okay. Helen?
Yeah, my question was answered. Thank
Okay.
you.
John?
Yeah, Charlie or Lisa or Mary, or all three, through you, Ryan. Is there a protocol for ongoing training on Vadar? Because I seem to recall that that was one of the things that happened before, was that there hadn't been enough of it, or something. There's something regarding training and the use of the new program.
Charlie?
Well, I'm going to answer it, but I'm going to, Lisa is a more practical user of Vadar, but I mean, there were a lot of problems really the beginning July 1st, 2019, when the Vadar product was initiated and unveiled. So I think a lot of it, frankly, had to do with a lot of staff transition at that time. New people coming and going with some rapidity. And then, so I think Vadar, from what I can surmise, was trying to engage and trying to help, but with the turnover that was occurring, it really impacted training. And I don't think there was enough engagement between the two parties on all of these elements. Vadar has Lisa should really talk about this,
I was just going to say, in Brewster, I had the same computer system since 2004. It's all in how you set it up. It works fine. It's very simple. I think one of the issues was the conversion from BMSI to Vadar and the changing of the account numbers, the account funds, and that's everything just got scrambled and no one could figure it out. That's why I made a new chart for 22, which separates your expenses from your wages, just like you vote at town meeting. It's very simple and it's user-friendly. It really is.
And I think, the only other thing I'll add, Lisa, maybe you could touch upon it too, is, they have technical help desks, and
Yes, the
our
collector's office
experience,
uses it quite often. The
yeah,
collector's
our
office
experience
uses it
is they're
often.
responsive. So you
Yes,
have
they
to
are.
ask.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a follow-up question. Ryan.
Go ahead, Helen.
Yeah, Charlie, Lisa. So when you go away and leave us finally, I hope not too soon, is there going to be somebody on staff who really understands this as well as, for example, Lisa? Or are we always going to have to ask somebody to come in from the outside? Thank you.
Charlie?
I would
Or
hope
Lisa.
that. I would hope that now that we have the new chart, at least for the operating budget, not those other funds, because we still have a lot of work to do on those funds as far as balancing. But the account numbers are there. It's my hope that as soon as that chart went out, it makes sense to everyone. And if they have a problem with it, they should definitely let me know and we can discuss it. But I haven't heard anything yet. The first reports went out and we'll see where that goes. But it is a very simple system that does work. You just have to know how to use it. And I think that might be the learning curve of a few people.
Yeah, and yeah, thank you, Lisa. And I think on top of that, let's face it, Mary, Lisa, and I are all retirees, and we all, value that part of our life. We all worked hard in the system to attain that. It is kind of rewarding to step in and learn about a new community. I worked in Provincetown, now I'm working at Wellfleet, and it is rewarding, and you do have a lot of really capable people here. I think, when we finish this process, and the Department of Revenue, I believe, will be critical here, is that we're going to establish a series, well, we hope that you'll adopt a series of policies and practices that will define how these activities are managed. And remember, part of the reports that we're going to put together a documentation of our findings and what the results are. But then, you need to test that, right? After we all leave, we bring on new people we hope to assist you in that if you'd like us. But then I think there's going to be a period of time where you want to retain someone like Mary Ann or Lisa on behalf of the town to come in and test that these things are occurring, monthly, to assist everybody. Just, we teach them to walk, and then, but just make sure that they don't stumble, that they do understand all of the ingredients. And, the other thing, I think Helen, you talked about it, is there is a lot of training available for municipal officials. And I think that's part of this too, is we want to make sure that people avail themselves of those programs that are held by the state. So that's another thing we'll keep exploring as we go down the road. So, yeah, I don't want to walk out the door and assume it's fine. We need to, I believe you need to sort of monitor and test and verify.
Okay, and then Irene Goldman, you had your hand up earlier. Was it up for this topic?
No, thank you for recognizing me. I want to speak to it. You had an open, at the beginning of the meeting there on the agenda, it was a time to be able to speak.
Yeah.
Perhaps I missed that.
Yes, you did. So we're just gonna have to move on. I'm sorry.
I'd like to address something on the
no,
bike.
Sorry. We'll be discussing the bike path later in this meeting. So right now we should move on to licenses, the Chequesset Yacht and Country Club. So thank you. Barry, I see Barry's on here. Barry, you're on mute, by the way.
Hello, thank you, Ryan.
All right. So you've applied for a weekday entertainment license for Thursday nights for live entertainment from 5 to 7. I have a question on that, and that's if you're applying for a weekday entertainment license, why not just apply for all the weekdays? So in case you have an event later in the season that's not on a Thursday, that you wouldn't have to come back before the board.
Sure, I think we would definitely explore that going forward in future seasons. Where we're at in this particular season is we've had this series of Thursday night social events for our club members, which we host down at our boathouse. It's a single vocalist with a guitar, and our members are able to come down there and just enjoy the entertainment. And that's the only thing we're really doing. The rest of our social calendar doesn't have any kind of entertainment like that. So next year we would definitely explore a license that gives us more flexibility. But for this year, the Thursdays is all we really have, and we're looking at the last Thursday is August 26th, and then that program schedule ends. So it's a relatively short period of time, but obviously the license is important to have that to make this all work appropriately.
Okay, Mike.
It's my recollection that we only issue we don't issue licenses for one day. We just issue the entertainment license with certain time constraints on them. I could be wrong. Maybe Janet knows for sure. I don't know if.
Janet?
Well, I was looking on the application. I was going to ask what the length is, and you did just say you're going to go until August 26th. Yeah, I mean, we do issue special licenses for one-day events like weddings and things like that. But I don't think that there's a problem with just issuing this and saying that it ends, you know, Labor Day or something like that. And I do want to thank you for appreciating and knowing that you're also in a residential area and that you're keeping it simple and kind of quiet.
Yes, 5 to 7 p.m., by the way.
Yeah,
Yep.
thank you for that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, Helen?
Yeah, we do like dates and we do like times. In other words, thank you very much for saying it's on Thursdays. And other applicants for licenses do that. It's not a one-day event. And I don't think you even need to get a copy of the noise bylaw because you're going to be stopping at 7. Thank you.
Right. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so I move to approve the weekday entertainment license to the Chaquasit Yacht and Country Club for Thursday nights from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. through, we'll say, September 4th, 2021.
I'll second.
Second? Okay. Janet, I.
John, I.
Michael, I.
Ryan, I. Helen?
Oh, my.
Okay, motion carries 5-0. Fourth.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate that.
Thank you, good luck. So we have Willie's Super Brew, use of town property. Is somebody from representing Super Brew is here?
Yes,
Okay. So Alice, correct?
yes,
All right. So it's for a beach cleanup. And you do this across the Commonwealth?
correct.
Okay. I guess if you can just speak on it for 1 or 2 minutes, please.
Sure, no problem. Thank you. This beach cleanup was first created last spring by Willie's Super Brew, which started out as Willie's Ginger Beer, started in Truro. Now they're based out of Boston, and this cleanup was first, the idea was to get people out during COVID in a COVID safe way and activity. And so this cleanup's kind of different than other cleanups where you get a lot of people to a few locations. This idea is that it's all people sign up online, they find the beach that they go to, and then we try to get a small groups of people to cover as many beaches as we can. And our goal on September 18th is to clean every single beach in Massachusetts, where about 2/3 of towns Massachusetts are already on board, including all of the National Seashore. I'm currently also working with DCR to get the Mass State Park properties as well. We did this very successfully this spring in Long Island as well, though it was a little harder to convince Long Islanders that a Massachusetts company wanted to clean up beaches. But so Center for Coastal Studies will be collecting all the cleanup data. And logistically, I know it's important. We need to talk about parking and trash disposal. I'm not sure if your does your parking extend through the end of September? If so, we will just recruit Wellfleet local residents with parking restrictions, because that happens all the time. And I will also then work with DPW to see if they are able to do an extra pickup, or if not, I think I already talked to them that they will allow beach cleanup trash to be deposited at the transfer station without any extra costs.
Okay, so the parking does not extend, or the parking season does not extend to the date that you've applied for, so there shouldn't be an issue on it. So Helen?
Yeah, I've got a motion when we're ready. I rewrote it a bit.
So can I just clarify for Ms. Gong that the DPW did put a note in our packet saying that they would appreciate it if you dropped the trash off at the transfer station. The
Okay,
extra trash.
okay. We will let our volunteers know that.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for doing this.
Okay, Helen,
I move to allow Willie's Super Brew to conduct a beach cleanup on September 18th, 2021, from 1 to 5 p.m. at various Wellfleet beaches, including those listed in the application submitted by Alice Gong, with no fee charged and as conditioned by the departments.
second. Roll call vote, please.
Janet, I.
John, I.
Michael, and I'd just like to thank you for doing this and putting this together.
Ryan, I.
Ellen, I.
All right, so this is a great program, so thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Porch Fest. Is Andrew on here? So. Andrew Stalker. I don't see him.
I don't see him either.
Okay, I think we all know what Porch Fest is. Do we need an explanation or are we ready to move? Janet?
So I would just like to clarify, I wish Andrew or anybody on Porch Fest was here. I don't think they charge anything. I think they do this for free. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. And I think charging them, again, a $50 processing fee is one thing, but $110 fee where they're doing it for free, to me, should be either lessened or just not at all, because we have on our next use of town property, you have a $200 fee for somebody who's charging $20 a person and going for 7 or so weeks. So we still haven't talked about fees, but I would like to not charge them the $110 fee. It's a great town event.
Yep. Helen?
I feel the same way, but I want included in the motion the same language I put at the end of the last one, that there is a request from Suzanne Grout Thomas about how this should happen on Commercial Street, and we should respect that. I would be willing to waive the fee too.
Okay, and John, you had your hand up?
I just wanted to agree with Janet and Helen that we should waive the fee.
Yep. Okay, so Helen, if you're ready with the motion.
Oh, no, I have to do this? Okay.
You just said,
I just said I wanted somebody else to do it, but that's fine. Here's what's interesting. I just got a text from somebody in the know and said, it says Andrew pulled his applications for this. So should I simply just say, I move to approve the organizers, the use of various streets in Wellfleet for Porch Fest without mentioning Andrew's name? How about that?
So he may have pulled it because of COVID regulations. So why don't we keep it as it is until we hear from him, and then he can always withdraw it
So you think,
formally.
okay, I'm not sure what we should do here. I'm not sure if this has actually been pulled and we're going through it and nobody was Andrew wanted to use the Bakersfield Pavilion. I'm getting this from Jean McLaughlin. Okay. So I'm a little confused. I don't want to approve something that isn't what the applicant wants. And I see.
Helen, 1 second. So if Jeannie Mac has something to add to this, she should be on this call and not sending text messages to you. So Jeannie, are you here?
It was on here.
There's a Jean. I don't know if it's Jeannie Mac.
Yeah.
It's me. I'm
Okay.
here. It's Jean.
All right. So fill us in, please.
Andrew applied to use Bakersfield Pavilion in conjunction with Porch Fest. Porch Fest has never asked for permission to use town property.
Ah,
Andrew's thing that he wanted to do at Bakersfield didn't have enough support, so he's not doing it. It's separate from the Porch Fest.
Okay,
Okay, so would we take no action in that case?
Yeah.
Correct. It was supposed to be pulled from the agenda.
Okay,
thank you.
the whole thing, including Porch Fest?
Porch
No.
Fest never requested use of town property.
Yeah,
That was just
normally it's
Andrew
on
and
private.
Bakersfield.
you know, they're playing from
Okay,
people's
yeah,
porches,
yes, yeah.
so.
All right, you're right. Okay.
No
right.
action.
All right, so on
Never
to the request to use the Wellfleet basketball courts from Paul Frisco. Paul, are you on? I do not see a Paul. Oh, wait, I see Paul's iPhone. So, yeah, Paul, somebody unmute him if he's,
There's two Pauls. One, there's a Paul's iPhone and a Paul.
yeah.
Oh, there.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hey, yes, I'm here. Sorry about that.
Okay, so this is for exercise class, correct?
Yes, an adult boot camp class.
Okay. Okay, any questions from the board?
I just want to know, I'm looking, I think he did say how long in the season it would go.
Yes, it does. It's
Where is it?
through September.
Yeah, so it would be through September 25th would be the last weekend.
Okay. Okay, are there any questions from the board? Mike?
Yeah, I just don't see, and maybe I'm just not seeing it, with the dates and, oh, there it is, sorry. So it's just a 45-minute class?
Yep.
Okay, Fridays and Saturdays. That seems like a reasonable time. I just want to make sure the basketball court's, available to use for people who play basketball in the morning. I know there's some people who go down there, but it's just 2 days for 45 minutes. I mean, I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but I think that's probably all right with me.
Yeah.
All right, so can we have a motion?
I'll move to approve the motion to the request by Paul to use the basketball courts on Fridays and Saturday mornings from 8 to 8:45 through the end of September with a fee of $200 to be charged.
Ellen, second.
Okay, roll call vote.
Janet, I.
John, I.
Mike?
Aye.
Ryan, aye. Helen?
Ellen, I, sorry.
Motion carries 5-0.
Oh, pardon me, can I just, no, that's fine, never mind. We can
Okay.
move.
Okay,
Well, that's, sorry,
sorry.
Ryan, I was gonna, first off, thank you so much. It's really exciting. I think it will be a benefit to the Wellfleet community. So I appreciate you guys' support. Just wanted to ask, if the class does take off and is successful, am I able to expand that to another day aside from Friday and Saturday to add Wednesday as a third day?
You'd have to come back before the board. Because you were approved for Friday and Saturday. Any additional time periods, you'd have to, apply again to the board and come before us. So.
Okay.
Okay, so Susie Nielsen of the Farm Project applying to use the basketball courts. So Susie, are you on this call? Sorry, I have a hard time seeing. I do not see her. Okay. And this is August 12th, 2021 is the date that she's applying for, and the 14th. It's from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. and 7 p.m. and to 9:30 p.m. And that they would like to project imagery onto the basketball courts. So I'd like to go to the board. How do you feel about taking action without the applicant before the board?
I'm fine with it. It seems, I wish she was here just so we could see. I can't imagine projecting something onto the basketball court, whether it's the blacktop or like in the air, but it sounds interesting. I certainly trust Susie Nielsen, and I would approve this.
Okay, Helen?
Yeah, me too. It's, non-invasive, non-polluting, and kind of interesting. And I have some acquaintance with Liz Giametti. She's married to a local person who's an architect.
Okay, Mike?
I just, it does look like that's prior to sunset. And I know that, that's kind of a popular time right around then to use the courts, but I just don't know if it's just gonna be like blinding light in people's eyes, or if it's after sunset that she's planning on projecting things. Like, I don't really have a problem with it. It's only 2 days, but yeah, whatever. I'd imagine that it's probably at dark that they're projecting, but it's hard to know.
Yeah, I'd imagine that, it takes them, I don't know, 30 minutes, 40 minutes to set up.
Yeah.
Depending on the setup, so. Helen?
Yeah, I looked it up. Sunset on the 14th is 7:41 and sunset on the 12th is 7:44. And I think it's the extra time is simply to set up. That's the way it seems to me. Thank you.
Okay, so can we have a motion, please?
I move to approve the use of the town pier on August 12th, 2021 from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. and the use of the basketball court on August 14th, 2021 from 7 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. From Susie Nielsen of the Farm Project with a fee of $110.
Second.
And again, I'm going to throw this out there because I was wondering what the fee was. It seems a little high for, again, if other people are doing $200 for 7 weeks or something like that, I would at least like to lower the fee. And I can't wait till we talk about fees next time. So I would lower the fee to $50. We're getting the processing fee, and it doesn't seem like she's using really any part besides the air.
She's not charging anything.
Yeah, so I'd like to lower it to 50, or yeah, say 50.
Helen?
Yeah, I have no idea. This may be something that this is an art project. They can write it off. I don't know. So yeah, I'll lower it, but
All right, so for a $50 fee, I'll say in the motion.
Okay, second. Roll call vote.
Janet, I.
John, I.
Mike?
Michael, I.
Brian, I.
Ellen, I.
Okay, motion carries 5-0. Taxation Aid Committee to approve insert for the fall tax bills. Don Rickman reached out to me and says that she has another meeting that she has right now. So she's unable to attend our meeting tonight. But I think otherwise it's pretty self-explanatory. So Janet?
I was just gonna say, we do this every year,
Yeah.
and I'm glad she got this done early. So, yep, I would approve this, no problem.
Okay, so I move to approve the insert from the Taxation Aid Committee into the fall tax bill.
Second,
Okay, roll call vote.
Janet, I.
John, I.
Michael, I.
Ryan, I.
Ellen, I.
Okay, motion carries 5-0. Appointments, George Harris, to be appointed to the Commission of, I think it's Commission on Disabilities, and the Council of Aging. So George, are you on the call?
I am.
Okay. All right, so are you interested in both committees?
I'm not totally sure about the extent of involvement. I used to run a council on aging for the town of Lexington, Mass. Years ago. And I know a lot about disabilities in the transportation world and discrimination for folks with disabilities and ADA. I'm an expert in that area. I've read the MGL information on the roles and responsibilities of the Commission on Disabilities. It seems pretty interesting work in terms of research and kind of ensuring that the town is basically addressing, the needs of disabled individuals. So I applied for like 4 different groups. I wasn't really sure which one you needed the most help on. I would say whatever committee you feel, might need additional support, to give it a quorum, I'd be glad to offer my time.
Okay, Janet?
So Suzanne Grout Thomas is on the meeting, and I think his application is impeccable. I'll just put this out, but then Suzanne can comment that the council on, or the Commission on Disabilities wouldn't take too much time, but Council on Aging, Suzanne can talk to you about that. And I also wanted to know that if a resident, if you're concerned about your time, is that, do you live here year round?
I don't, but my wife and I are here every week.
Okay, so that, yeah, okay. So maybe, who's talking there? So maybe Suzanne can address COA?
Yes, Mr. Chair, may I speak?
Yes, you may, Suzanne.
Thank you. Yeah, I was glad to see the application. The Council on Aging Board meets one day, usually on a Wednesday. So if you're available midweeks for their meetings, that would be lovely. And I will say that we have, as a town, not had a functioning active Commission on Disabilities for quite a while, and it would be a boon to get that commission back in place and working on some projects that are sorely needed here. So thank you very much. Thank you for your application.
Okay, Helen?
Yeah, through you to the applicant, thank you for applying. Thank you for reading Mass General Law, and do read our charter. You can't miss 4 meetings in a row, consecutive meetings, unless they're within a 30-day period. But many people who aren't even residents have been incredible contributors to our boards and committees and shown up for everything and done really great work. So thank you. All you have to do is be committed and show up and follow the rules.
Okay, so this is
That's easy to do.
Okay, so this is an issue that I have. The COA is, the board for it is 11 people. Or the advisory board is 11 people. I think it's a little oversized. And I don't think that we necessarily need 11 person boards within the town.
Point of order.
This is about him being appointed to the Council on Aging Board as well.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Discussion of making it smaller.
So if we appoint him and then we decide to make it smaller, then somebody has to come off.
Why don't we appoint, oh, sorry, trustee Ryan?
I'm gonna call on Mike first. Mike,
How, there's 10 on there right now.
I believe so, yes.
Oh, God.
So I mean, if we reduce the size of it, we have to take people off anyways. I guess if it's functioning and they're making a quorum and the committee itself doesn't feel oversized, then I don't have a problem with it. I mean, it'd be one thing if they couldn't make a quorum, or they were coming to the select board saying like, look, this is unwieldy. We need to reduce the size of it. But other than that, I think it's fine with me if they want to try and navigate with that many heads. But I think Suzanne has her hand up.
Yep, Suzanne.
Yes, in the past, I believe it was originally 7, and then it was increased to 9 by vote of the select board, and then most recently to 11. I find that most of the board members really like each other, enjoy working with each other, and they maybe once in a 12 to 18-month period would have a problem with a quorum. But even through the pandemic, they continued to meet virtually and continue to conduct their business. So I wouldn't want to see anybody removed from it. Maybe when it comes to a point where enough people are not renewing their terms, then the discussion would be more fruitful at that point, instead of trying to penalize the existing members.
Yeah, so right now there is a vacancy. So the question is whether or not we want to appoint somebody to fill that vacancy, or if we should start looking to see, whether or not to appoint somebody to that vacancy, which would complicate any future attempts to, resize the board. So Helen?
Yeah, why don't we appoint this applicant to the Committee on Disabilities, so they will finally have a quorum of 4 because they're 7-member board, commission rather, and they can start meeting. And why don't we make a decision about what we want to do with this other committee and hold on that appointment until we do, and maybe have it on our next agenda if we can fit it in. And another way to do it, given what Suzanne just said, is to have the quorum, the membership of regular members be a lower number, and to have the alternate members, be up to 11 or whatever. Anyway, this isn't on our agenda discussing that.
Yep.
And why don't we just take no action on that other committee with this applicant? Thank you.
Okay, so Mike?
I'm all right with whatever the board wants to do. I don't see a problem appointing him if he wants to serve on that committee, and that committee hasn't expressed a problem with being a large committee. I know a lot of towns have trouble getting people on committees at all. Wellfleet doesn't seem to be having that problem with a very active group. So whatever the board wants to do, I'm fine with, but if he seems well qualified to be on the Council of Aging, so I'd hate to not see him be able to contribute.
Okay.
I mean, I just think if he wants to be on it, we should let him be on it. There's no resistance from Suzanne and no other board member, and it's a great thing. So COA always needs more help.
I really can't, sorry.
Helen?
Yeah, can't we just wait until the next meeting and appoint him to, the Commission on Disabilities? We can appoint him next meeting. It's much less complicated than having to unappoint someone. We need to deliberate about this on a proper agenda item about the makeup of this committee, and we can just have him on the same agenda and have his appointment be related to what we decide to do with this committee. But,
Okay.
you know, we can just hold it for 2 beats.
John?
Through you to Helen, are you suggesting that we appoint him to the Commission on Disabilities and hold off on the Council of Aging?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, that
For the
makes sense.
moment.
Okay. So I move to appoint George Harris to the Commission on Disabilities for a term ending June 30th, 2024.
Helen, second.
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Janet, I.
John, I.
Michael, I.
Ryan, I.
Helen, I.
Okay, motion carries 5-0. And on the commission, or for the Council on Aging Advisory Board, we'll take no action. So.
Thank you.
Yep. Go ahead, George.
Yeah.
Thank you. I look forward to it. I'm passionate about that community, so anything I can do, I'm happy to help.
You, Ryan, you have to go and get sworn in. Thank you. With the town clerk.
Okay.
Okay, Suzanne Baker, to be appointed to the Historical Commission. Suzanne?
It's Susan.
Susan.
Can you hear me?
sorry. So,
That's
yes.
okay. That's okay. Yes, I'm here.
So typically, the applicant will just very quickly talk about why they're interested in the.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So I'm a museum professional and I work in the historic preservation field in the North Shore in Salem, Massachusetts. I live full-time in Wellfleet now, and I'm working part-time in Salem, where I've been very involved in. I work for the House of Seven Gables, which is a National Historic Landmark District. So I'm very involved with kind of preservation issues on the built environment. I also have been very involved in working with the city of Salem on adapting historic neighborhoods and buildings for climate change and rising sea levels. So, so I'm very committed to maintaining the historic nature of the built environment in towns, and I love Wellfleet, and I'm really interested in getting involved in helping the town to maintain that as much as they can. And that's really it. Happy to answer any questions if anybody has any.
Okay. So I'm just trying to figure out what the term is first. So the Historical Commission actually specifies that 2 members are for 1 year, 2 members are for 2, and 3 members are for 3. Yeah, and we have 3 members with appointments running through 2024. So those are the three for 3 years, and then 1 through 2022. So I think it would be for a 2-year term.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, go ahead.
Meryl Mead Fox is on the meeting. I think she's on that board, the commission.
Okay.
She might know.
Meryl?
Hi, I'm really here primarily to support Susan's application. My understanding is that everybody currently has a 3-year term except for Lucas Manning, who's been serving already for a year. I just re-upped, and the other 2 people on the board right now are it just started this year. So, but I'll leave that up to all of you about the terms, and but we're just very happy to have Susan Baker applying for this position, and thrilled that she has so much experience in this area.
Okay, Helen?
Why don't we give her a 3-year term?
No, it has to be a 2-year.
Okay,
So,
your term. But wait, that isn't what I have 2 questions for the applicant. Susan Baker, thank you for applying. And have you had a chance to look at the video recording of any of their meetings yet?
I attended their last meeting
Okay,
and one of their previous. I've read the Mass law too governing historic commissions, and I do think that after the initial establishment of the committee, that it then goes to 3-year terms for everyone. So that's just what I read into it. But yes, so I have attended the last meeting and watched one of their previous meetings.
thank you. And that's the reason I thought it was 3 years, but we can be stricter.
So it's by town meeting vote. Town meeting
Yeah.
voted on the terms. So I move to appoint Susan Baker to the Historical Commission for a term ending June 30th, 2023.
Helen second.
Okay, okay. Janet, I.
John, I.
Michael, I.
Ryan, I.
Helen, I. Thank
Okay,
you.
motion carries 5-0. All
Read the
right,
charter, don't miss 4 meetings in a row. Same thing.
yep. All right, Bike and Walkways Committee. So Peter Cook, if you may.
Hi, Ryan.
Howdy.
Hi, thanks. And let's see, Hillary is driving the slides, so thank you for that. This is just a brief presentation. You've all received a copy of the detailed report of the committee study. This is our suitability study, which we did at the in coordination with the select board. It's a starting point in the conversation, is the way we see it. It's a part of a process. And we are open to new ideas, and we're looking forward to collecting questions that the committee can answer. Clearly, it's a detailed report. We're happy to engage anyone who wants to know more about what we did, but we'll present a brief overview here. Okay, so we were charged by the select board to determine the best connecting route for cyclists and pedestrians from the end of the Cape Cod Rail Trail, which is currently in, as we all know, DCR has gotten as far as the campground, and will be proceeding. Their intention is, of course, to proceed to Route 6. And so we're looking at how to best connect from the end of the Cape Cod Rail Trail through Wellfleet to Truro. We solicited a lot of inputs. We reviewed a number of guidance references, and also bikeway studies that have been done around the country and also in Europe, to get good ideas on how to conduct this analysis in a proper way so that it could be strong and objective. And we concluded with 2 recommendations. Route Z, then these are numbered in an arbitrary alphanumeric fashion here, but Route Z ended up being the highest scoring route using the scoring method that we developed. It faces opposition from the Cape Cod National Seashore. Another route, Q2, is the highest scoring route that avoids the National Seashore. The issue there is it doesn't serve all of the intended users for a Wellfleet bikeway over its intended length. The current plans presented by the state, by DCR and Mass DOT, we included them in the scoring process, and it turns out they scored the lowest out of 28 solutions that were scored. So next slide. So the study began because the state's bike route proposals had met public opposition, as I think everyone in town has been aware, regarding safety and other adverse impacts to Wellfleet. And also there were statements made in the last of the bicycle plans that were done for the Outer Cape, the one done by the Cape Cod Commission in 2017. And there were a couple of quotes that we pulled out of that report here that you can see, that Wellfleet needs a more detailed evaluation of possible route designs, and at where the railroad bed meets Route 6 is an area of concern. So these have been of longstanding concern. There have been a number of studies done over the years. First discussion of a bikeway through this area seems to have initiated in 1970. There was a major study done in 1987, another that was done in 2010 by the seashore, actually. And so we included those as references, and we cite those in the report. They all had interesting conclusions. However, obviously there was no bikeway. So what we did is develop a goals-based quantitative computational analysis method to look at alternative routes so that we could strengthen the select board's position for engaging external agencies, the state in particular, in a better process for determining a good bikeway solution through Wellfleet to Truro. And in doing so, we had a number of public inputs, and we reached out to engage external agencies who were identified as stakeholders in this process. And of course, we kept the select board informed as we were proceeding in this study. Next slide. So the state's current plan for Wellfleets, there've been a number of public meetings, and so this is no surprise, I don't think, to anyone. Essentially, it's outlined here in this slide, but it includes terminating the Cape Cod Rail Trail at Route 6, which is the orange line that you see here. What we did here is combine the DCR and Mass DOT plans on one slide. So where you see there's the orange line that proceeds to what is identified as Route 6 and then stops. That would be the termination of the Cape Cod Rail Trail. And then from that point forward on Route 6, there would be shoulder bike lanes continuing from Wellfleet to Provincetown. They already exist in Truro and North Wellfleet, for instance. In addition, there would be a 10-foot wide two-way shared use pathway on the east side of Route 6 from the Cape Cod Rail Trail terminus to the Main Street intersection. And there would also be, in addition to the shared use pathway, there would be shoulder bike lanes along Route 6, but there would also be shoulder bike lanes in the sidewalk on East Main Street. And then there would, as we saw in the documentation from the roundtable meeting, it looks like they would ultimately continue the shared use pathway along Route 6 to Grosse Hill Road. Next slide, please. So looking through the reference materials and a number of studies done around the country, and taking public inputs on what's important in Wellfleet for a bikeway, we ultimately distilled that down to 5 goals: safety, practicality, user experience, conservancy, and that includes private property impacts and also impact on any cultural, scenic, community, or environmental areas or values, and then also connectivity. And from those 5 goals, we derived 18 objectives. So the goals and the objectives defined what's important to measure, what's important for a good bikeway. The 18 objectives were then turned into 60 scoring criteria. So the measurable aspects of those 18 objectives resulted in 60 scoring criteria. And when we went out and we scored in the field, scoring the various routes that were proposed, those 60 criteria are the ones that they were scored against. Next slide, please. So where did these routes come from? We've talked about this in our past presentations on the analysis plan and some of the public sessions we've held. We held a public roundtable in February, and we've of course invited people to our meetings, public to attend the meetings. But we got all the route ideas that were considered here were actually provided by members of the public in Wellfleet. And some of them also appeared in some of the past documentation from other organizations who had considered the issue as well, and some other studies. But it was interesting that they all came from the public here, and we scored them all. We didn't reject any. And we felt that that was important so that we could do a comprehensive analysis that would include all the interests that were expressed to us. And so you see them scored here, and these are the total scores. Now, as the report shows in detail, there's a lot of different ways to break the scores out. This is a simple depiction of the total scores for 28 routes that were scored. Route Z at the far end, at the right end, scored the highest, and then at the on the left-hand end, Route A scored the lowest. The range of scores was between 100 points and 500 points, as we explained in our analysis plan, and it's also in the report. So the range was from 100 to 500. And you see here we had a score of, I think it was 353 for Route A, which is the state's combined route. And in Z scored, that's the route that scored the highest, scored at 444. Next slide, please. So they are mapped out here for comparison. You can also see the state's route, and you'll see the color coding to the right. We broke these into grading bands: outstanding, excellent, satisfactory, marginal, and unsatisfactory. And those color codes are applied to the routes that are shown on the map. Again, because the state's route scored in the marginal range, you see it here as orange. What is scored as green is Route Z, which was the highest scoring route, and that's the one that does involve segments that go through the National Seashore. And then what's shown here in yellow is the route that is the highest, has the highest suitability score for a route that avoids the National Seashore. And let's see, I can be happy to provide a description of those routes. Although the map shows it, when you look at the map, I'll describe it. Route Z, the green, proceeds on the Cape Cod Rail Trail to Old County Road, then continue on a shared use pathway beside Old County Road to Cahoon Hollow Road, and then west beside Old Cahoon Hollow Road to the utility right-of-way border with the National Seashore. From that point, proceed north to Grosse Hill Road, and then on to Gull Pond Road, and then follow Old Kings Highway from that point to Collins Road in Truro. For the route that's in yellow here, similar to Route Z until it gets to Gull Pond Road. Once it gets, or actually we take the utility right away to go from Grosse Hill to Gull Pond. And then from that point, it would avoid Old Kings Highway, but at that point, it would become a share the road pathway along Gull Pond Road, which you can see extending from east to west to reconnect with Route 6. And then you see the yellow line proceeding northward toward Truro. So that those were the two proposals that were highest scoring in their categories, either overall or excluding territory in the National Seashore. Route Z scored number 1 of 28. The other one, Q2, came out as number 17 of 28. Next slide. So that's a comparison of the three routes. Option 1, Route Z, which is the highest scoring again. Option 2, the highest scoring route that avoids the National Seashore, and then the state's plan, which, as you know, is mostly along Route 6. And you can see here a comparison of how well they provide connectivity. Let me explain the second row, segments rejected by the National Seashore. It's explained in the report, but there were 3 organizations who we approached to help with the scoring, because we wanted their opinions on the potential segments that comprise the routes. And we approached the police department. Chief Hurley assisted us. We approached DPW as well. And Jay worked with us. And then we also talked with the people of the National Seashore staff who work for Brian Carlstrom. And DPW and the police did not have any problem with they didn't reject any segments. However, they worked with us to score segments. We wanted their opinion on whether or not there was any conflict with any DPW projects, or wanted to register any safety concerns that the police had in different areas. Several segments were rejected by the National Seashore that passed through the seashore. But you can see here, for their lengths, option 1 is entirely shared use path. It's accessible to all the intended users, a bikeway. The second option, which avoids the seashore, would provide 3.5 miles of shared use path before it lands at Gull Pond Road, and at that point on, it would be not appropriate for all the intended users of a shared use bike path. And the state's route shows 2 miles of shared use path, and that's assuming that they continue their phase 2 work from the campground to Route 6. Next slide. So we're, again, we see this as a starting point. Our recommendation for Wellfleet and our recommendation to the select board for whom this report was intended is to form a multi-agency partnership and to implement a bikeway plan using the results of this study. Also to engage the public, including and especially potential abutters, in determining those future plans, and to ensure that there's good transparency and good input from the stakeholders. And that's all.
Okay, before we go to the public, I'd like to go to the board. Okay, who got their hand up?
I'll
first?
raise my hand. Okay.
Yeah.
John's had his hand up first.
All right, John.
Yeah, first a question and then a comment. The option 2, how much of option 2 would involve, I mean, what would be the route from the current South Wellfleet terminus to Gull Pond Road? I'm not really clear on that.
Well, the select board asked us to look at, in particular, to look at routes from where the rail trail crosses Old County Road.
Okay.
So we use that as a starting point for looking at that route.
Okay,
So
well,
it would
then
go from
further-
there and it would go along Old County Road and then along Cahoon Hollow Road for a short distance. The intention being to do a shared use pathway beside the road on the side that would least impact any property nearby. And, you know, to do road crossings at places where you had good viewing field. And then to proceed up that boundary between the seashore and the utility right of way, and then proceed north.
Okay, and my comment is this has to do with this statement on the sheet here that is recommended by the BWC but faces resistance from the CCNS staff. I'd like to point out that it also, I've become aware just very recently, I mean very recently, that it seems to face significant opposition from a significant number of local residents who are opposed to paving over. I'm speaking more of option 1 here. As they put it, paving the woods. You know, where currently we have dirt roads and fire roads and that, and you know, old Kings Highway and so forth. That frankly, that objection had not occurred to me, but I've become very aware of this, and we may face some real opposition here. I hope some of the people who feel this way about it are here this evening and can share their concerns. Because I would like to learn more about it myself.
Okay.
That's all I got.
Okay, Helen?
Yes, we received a number of articulate and by me much appreciated emails about that issue of the alternatives that would go alongside or nearby to or abutting private property. And I've read them all. I want to say 3 things. One is this analysis makes me very happy because it finally provides what the Cape Cod Commission recommended in its 2017 master plan for this bike trail, and you know, which can also be a walkway. It recommended that we have a more detailed evaluation, quote unquote, and further study for this segment, which has clearly always been a problem. And this analysis has done that. Whether I agree with all the recommendations or not, that's another matter. The other thing that's breaking news And I would think that reopening an exchange with the National Seashore about this would be appropriate. Is that very recently, given that there's a new administration, probably, two possible funding sources for being able to do a bike trail in the park. From the state, the Mass Trails grants, there's going to be money available. And the National Park Roadways funding grants is also something, and this has just happened. And Peter Cook emailed the select board links to those two opportunities today. And I would like to be able to, just ask the Cape Cod National Seashore, the superintendent, what if at all this might change? Maybe it wouldn't. So the last thing I want to say is I've read this, I'm still thinking about it. And I'm very grateful that it's happened. But I would like us not to make decisions tonight, to really have this be a hearing type of situation and for the board to further digest it.
Okay,
Thank you.
Brian, for the sake of answering Helen's question.
That program's so new, I really can't comment on it at this point.
Yeah.
To be quite honest with you.
Okay, Mike.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank the Bike and Walkways Committee for the work that they put in. It's clearly taken a lot of time. I just had a couple questions about the routes. It says in the report that the Old Kings Highway section is town owned. We did get an email from the park stating that it's park owned today. And I'm just wondering if there's any dispute about that, or where the Bike and Walkways Committee got that information, or if it's sort of in contention in any way.
No, it's, we had our information from town hall. So if that information needs correction, and of course we want to do that.
Okay.
We were told it was a town owned, right of way.
Okay, and then the other question I had, as far as Route Q2 goes, it says that it has all the qualities for a shared use path. I'm just wondering about the grade situation. Would it be able to be used the same way as a shared use path, or is there certain standards that have to apply to the grade? Do you know, Peter, as far as the grading? I know that was an issue over parts of the section, and maybe you can answer that a little.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, grading is of course a key concern. And when we looked at, well, what accessibility things should we consider, variables should we consider, we worked with Cape Cod Commission to arrive at two. One of those was in fact the grade angle. And so there are different standards for grade angle depending on which agency you're talking with. DCR has one set, and that's what we applied here. DOT has a similar set that's really looking at a 5% grade as being the maximum, but they have some exceptions for that depending on what roadways already exist. DCR, on the other hand, tries for a 5% grade. However, they have higher grades where they're necessary. So for shorter distances, and there are actually tables that refer to the distances and what percentage grade you can have. And we've reviewed those. The other thing is that around the country, there are engineering solutions to handle high grades. We can see a hill and say, well, there's no way a bikeway would work there. However, by engineering it properly, there are solutions to handle grade. One of them, and one we might find attractive in Wellfleet, is to do stair stepping. And that's where you do short distances, slightly higher grade, followed by a longer distance of a lower grade. And then to continue doing that terraced approach, that's been done other places on the Cape. It's a common practice. Another way to do it is to do switchbacks. And there are examples of successful bikeways that have done that as well. In other words, essentially going, well, as the name implies, going back and forth to get up a steep hill. But for the areas we're talking about here in Wellfleet, I mean, that's a design issue. What we looked at is realizing that's a design issue, though, we wanted to look at any area that looked like it would be completely unreasonable to identify a solution. And we think that you know, for the purposes of this suitability study, that that we took that into account. That was part of the scoring for all of the route segments.
Okay, Janet?
So really good job, Peter, at this report. Pretty phenomenal details and easy to understand. And thank you for doing that. It's a long time coming. I guess my main comment is that with what you call the public utilities or the power lines, they're privately owned. A lot of the land is actually privately owned. And it doesn't seem like the people who own that land want to sell it. So that is a huge roadblock, probably the biggest roadblock. And then with that goes along that all this, you know, who's going to pay for this? So in the past, when there's been talk about this, and there has been talk about bikeways for 10 plus years, that the reason this present design by the state came in to play was that they bought the land and they own the land that they're presenting. I'm not so sure the state, our town, maybe federal funds. I mean, it'd be federal funds that would be the next place to go. But grading the power lines, widening Cahoon Hollow Road and some other roads. I think, you know, the next step is to look at funding, but really how much it's going to cost. And all it's going to take is one homeowner, one landowner, just say, I don't want to sell. And I don't know how you would complete it. So those are my thoughts. You don't even have to answer them tonight, but that's the resistance, you know, those are the problems facing it.
Okay. So why am I getting echo? Anyways, in terms of routes, personally, I do not want to opt for a potential route that involves extensive land exchanges with the seashore. We would run out of acreage pretty quickly if we opted for a route that, you know, let's say if it's a 20 or 30 foot right away to establish the route that crosses National Seashore. And if we encroach upon parcels to establish grades, that involves additional acreage. And I just don't think that the town itself necessarily has a huge amount of land that could possibly be exchanged with the seashore. And when we do make exchanges with the seashore for various parcels or encroachments, they have to be fairly critical in terms of the need to do so. Because once we exchange land, that land's gone, and we can't exchange it ever again. In terms of routes, I just and funding, I just don't see the benefit of running a route all the way through Truro through the backwoods. You know, I mean, once you get to the other side of the basically area north of the school, you know, at that point, the highway is relatively safer. It's not safe, it's safer. than some of these other locations. And, you know, having to construct additional segments just to get basically an additional half mile down the road on the highway, over a stretch of the highway that is already relatively safe, just seems to be a misallocation of resources, or would be a misallocation of resources on the part of the town. On that note, I would like to call on the audience. Helen, I see your hand up. I'll get back to you.
That's okay. Don't worry about it.
So Irene Goldman, please.
Yeah, thanks very much. And it's Irene Goldman, property owner, 25 Queens Way. My property is, we own the property that is the right of way. I want to say for the public often hears utilities right of way, and they think that's a public right of way, not knowing. It's important to point out that 100% of this proposition, of this proposal, is privately owned. And I thank the members of the board who are commenting and very thoughtful. And Mr. Cook, I think you've done an extraordinary job of attempting to reach out to all parties and such. But as a property owner who owns the land on which these two routes are proposed, I feel as though the weight that might have been given to the property owners doesn't appear to be weighted as such. I'm not a statistician, but that's how it feels to me when I look at the report, and have only had it for a day or so. So I urge you all, I love that you call this quiet solitude of Wellfleet that you want to preserve, and that's my solace to be in Wellfleet. Please, I'm asking the board, the selectmen, to please reject both of the propositions that call for Z or Q2, and to select another one. I have ideas about how other ideas for Route 6, but today I just want to be very firm and clear that taking the precedent that would be set by Wellfleet to go for taking over private property. That's my back view. I look out my back door, I let my dogs out, and that's where they run, on my property that the power lines run over. And please picture that when you're considering all these private properties, looking out at something that is alien to their initial purpose and purchase. Thank you.
Okay, Diane, and can you please, once you're unmuted, can you please identify yourself with the full name? So she's muted. Okay.
Hi, it's Deanna Gisolfi. My home is at 45 Elisha Witherell Road. And I have an extensive swatch of the power line as part of my property. And I have to second everything that Irene just said. I don't understand how you can make your two, and I read everything you wrote. I read the whole program twice carefully. I looked at all your maps. I tried to understand exactly where they go. And as far as I can tell, both of your proposals go through the power line, which is private property. So all of us who invested in these properties along the power line, which come adjacent to the National Seashore, that's what we were buying when we bought our property. We weren't buying a bikeway in our backyard. So I'm opposed to both of your proposals strongly. And I know at least two other neighbors who feel exactly the same way as Irene and I do.
Okay, Helen?
Yeah, a couple things. And some of us know this because of the Eversource issue with the spraying. The entire length of the power lines, which is an easement that goes through people's private property, Some of it's owned by the park, some of it's owned by the town, and some of it's owned by private property owners. It's kind of a bit checkerboard. That's one thing. And certainly private property owners who have to submit to Eversource's pesticide applications and everything else don't want more going on there. Here's the way I'm using this analysis study. I'm very grateful for the recommendations from the Bike and Walkways Committee. But there are a whole lot more options included in it than the main recommendations from that committee. And I am going to look at what I can bring out of it to form my opinion as one person on the select board for what I think would be the best way to deal with this. Getting bikes through this area in Wellfleet, which has stumped everybody for years. So I think that the wide net that the Bike and Walkways Committee spread, taking in all options, particularly given these new funding sources that may or may not affect things, I think we shouldn't just think of it as, oh, the select board is automatically going to take these two top recommendations. I would hope that our board would be looking at all the different things that the Bike and Walkways Committee looked at and rated, and then to go further with it ourselves. Thank you.
Okay, Brian?
I believe Michelle may have had her hand up first, Ryan.
Yep.
Okay.
So, all right, Michelle?
Yes, I just wanted to echo the comments of Deanna and Irene with respect to the property owners that abut that easement or own the property by which Route Z and Route Q2 would go through. I am new to this proposal. I don't know what prior outreach has been done to the property owners who either own the property or abut the easement by which the bikeway would go through, but this is news to me. It's not something that I certainly would support. I agree with what Helen just mentioned, that the recommendations have a lot to say for them, but I would urge great caution to seize upon routes Z and Q2. I don't think it's feasible from a private property point of view. I do think that there may be concerns with what MassDOT or DCR have proposed, but I don't think Z and Q2 are really feasible. Other comments Ryan mentioned about how much are you trying to buy a bypass when you're really just getting back to Route 6. I think there's reason for great caution. I don't think this is a practical route, and I certainly, as an abutter or property owner, depending on how the bike path actually gets formulated, would not be in support of Route Z and Q2. I am at 35 Elijah Woodwall Road. Thanks.
Okay, Brian?
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. Brian Carlstrom, Superintendent, Cape Cod National Seashore, and Pete Hardy, congratulations and thank you for doing such a thorough job with this analysis. We've participated in it as an actively engaged collaborator and provided a great deal of input. But I do want to remind everybody that, as Pete started at the beginning, this is a starting point. And to perfect anything that would be implemented within the seashore, we've got to conform fully with the requirements of the National Environmental Policy Act. And an action of this nature being recommended by the town to be done within the seashore, there's a lot of complicated details that would need to be worked out, and analysis that would be required with this as a starting point and a contributing element that we would be beholden to completing. And that's a huge, significant step that I want everybody to be fully aware of. You're likely talking about an environmental assessment on this, and that's something that does not have signatory authority that rests at the seashore. That rests with the regional director in Philadelphia. And going through an analysis through a contractor with conforming with NEPA would not necessarily determine any of these parameters or this through a public engagement process as being a preferred alternative. There's a long way to go on this, but this is a really solid starting point and an impressive body of work that's been done to further this conversation. I applaud the effort. Thanks.
Okay. Christine O'Campbell, Campbell, sorry.
Oh, Campbell, you got it. Hi, I'm part of the Bike and Walkways Committee, so I just agree with Helen and Brian that this is a starting point and people shouldn't get too caught up in each individual pathway, that we could look at this with experts, as Brian's saying. People have been trying to do this for so long, and we value all the inputs, especially the private property owners. And they are so eloquent, and I thank them for coming and writing letters. And I also want to represent families, tourists, guest workers, and all the other people that we have thought about while doing this. And also just things as important as we cannot go right by a pond. We want to cut down as few trees as possible. We need to get bikers off the highway. So there are just so many interesting factors and perspectives, and we want to keep hearing all of them. So I really look forward to starting this conversation tonight and in the future.
Okay, Helen?
Yeah, through you to Superintendent Carlstrom. Yes, it's very complicated if the park decided, not the town of Wellfleet to use park property, but if the park decided it wanted to finally have, as you have in Provincetown, quite a lot of ways for bicycles to use, in the province lands. But guess what? We've been practicing on the Herring River project. In other words, yeah, it's complicated, but it's happening on another project that's much bigger than this. And really, if you look at the maps with the various options, not just the two clearest recommendations, which it's good the Bike and Walkways Committee made clear recommendations. It's not wishy-washy. But if you look, there really isn't that much in the park that might need to be made into a bike trail. I don't know. But I'm glad that Christy and you, Brian, have seen it as the beginning of a close look at this, because I would really like it to happen in my lifetime. Thank you.
Okay, Chief Pauly?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of thoughts. I understand, I shouldn't understand, I appreciate the concerns of the Park Service, the National Park Service, the superintendent. But I've spent many years in the state of Maine and up to Acadia National Park, and I see those trails that are up there, those bike paths. They're actually old horse carriage paths, and I'm not suggesting that we would do that, but it's been done in the past. I think there needs to be a really deep discussion about utilizing some small portion of the park to help the town of Wellfleet accommodate the situation. And I think it can be done. If it has to involve federal legislation, that could happen, I believe. And certainly Mr. Carlstrom can, superintendent can correct me. But having bicycles out on Route 6 on a regular basis, and we've seen them every single day, multiple families, is just not a good, safe situation. And it seems to me that if the Park Service and the DCR and the town all want to collaborate and provide for some better bike trail situation, a pathway situation, that's the direction we should all be looking forward to collectively, collaboratively. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Any other comments before we move on?
Yeah.
Okay, Mike?
I'd just say that just looking at the routes that go through the power line easement. And, I did take a look at the property lines that abut that stretch. It does seem that they're set back a ways from the houses on those properties. And I'm not making any statements, but I live in a neighborhood that abuts the power lines and abuts the bicycle trail in South Wellfleet. The neighborhood, it's a major benefit to the neighborhood that I live in. There are a lot of my neighbors that live pretty close to the bike trail, and it's an enjoyable, calm, natural path that passes basically right behind the neighborhood that I live in, and I just would hope that the property owners give some consideration to the fact that it could be a benefit to their property as well, particularly considering that there's already an easement through there that was there when they purchased the property. So I'm not making a pitch for that. I'm just simply stating, my experience here living in a neighborhood that abuts the rail trail and how wonderful it's been for this neighborhood that I'm in, which is in Pinewood Circle.
Okay, John?
Yes. As to for you to what Chief Polly had to say, I don't think that any of this is going to change the fact that there are going to be bikes on Route 6. I think the question is, where do they come out on Route 6? Do they come out where there are all sorts of cut-throughs and parking lots, or in an area which doesn't have as many of them and is therefore safer? The trick, it seems to me, will be to find a route, a way to arrive at that without, with a minimum of impact on the natural surroundings in the park, and certainly a minimal impact on abutters. I would like to just suggest too that those whose objections to this I've seen, I'd like to remind you that the Bike and Walkway Committee's meetings have been open to the public, and it would be great to have those of you who object on one ground or another to this work with the committee. Don't just yell from the sidelines. Participate. Help us find a solution to this. Bringing bikes out at an intersection like Main Street and Route 6 is not going to work well. There has to be a better way to do it, and we need your help to find it. That's all I got. Thanks.
Okay. So Diane, Irene, I see your hands up, but at this point, we need to move on to get to the rest of our agenda.
I'm sorry, but so much for listening to the public.
I
mean, you're cutting us off.
You're gonna,
and we're not even allowed to respond to what Michael said.
Respectfully, you're just going to say this, you've already said what you'll say.
We have participated in the meetings. I've
Okay.
attended and I think it's great.
Okay, can you mute them, Karen? Sorry,
Yes.
we really do need to move on here. Your concerns are definitely noted. And as I said, this is a starting point, and we're going to move on at this point. So thank you. And thank you for coming tonight. So onto the home rule petitions.
That's rude.
Onto the home rule petitions. Is Jennifer on here? No, okay. All right, so I submitted amended cover letters for each of these. So I would just like to go through them for each home rule petition. Basically, we have to send these to the state or to our local legislatures. And they will submit them to the state on the behalf of the town. Janet, you have your hand up.
Well, I just want to say that there are a number of typos. And I started to correct them all. And I said, there's a lot here and it's not my job. So I noticed that Rebecca's not on, but before you send these out, they really have, I agree with what they say and they're well written, but there's a lot of typos.
Okay, Helen?
Yeah, we're referring to, Ryan, are we referring to the document you sent out after we got the packet, right? With the red.
Yes, I would prefer to use those. Yes.
Oh, all right.
Hold on, just establishing that. Yes, there are a lot of typos, but I want to very much say, I really appreciate the language you added to each one of those 4 docs. And the parts in red have less typos than some of the rest of it. And yes, somebody has to go through it. Maybe it'll be me, maybe it won't. But I really appreciate how well worded the sections that you amended in what you sent us today. And of course, that goes into the public record for the minutes for this meeting. Thank you.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that these need to go through proofreading.
But not content.
Yep.
I like those amendments. The content looks good to me.
Okay. So Charlie, how would you recommend handling this?
Thanks, everybody. So I think if the board, just so we can start processing these, because they're all important and that's what the board's indicating. I think if the board could improve these letters in concept, and then I'll work with Ryan to clean up the grammar and the language in each of the letters before we send it out.
So how would we word that?
I can make the motion.
Whoa.
Before we make the motion, Helen?
Yeah, Charlie, no, the concept we're voting on now. If the concept in these cover letters is changed, then I'm going to want to see it again as one member of the board. If you want to do, copy editing, proofreading, change the grammar, change the syntax, maybe a little bit, but not the content, change the punctuation, capitalization, that's fine, but not the content. Content's good as far as
that was going to be my motion, Helen.
Yeah, and I'm sorry if I misspoke. That was my intention by my comment. I might certainly have been less than clear. So
and I'm happy to do it if you don't want to do it. Okay, bye. Thank you.
Okay, and before we have that motion, does anybody have any issues with the amendments I added?
No.
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 All right, so Mike, if you will.
Okay. I move to send the 4 home rule petitions approved at town meeting as drafted by Ryan Curley to be copy edited for grammatical errors and such before sending.
Helen,
second.
Okay, roll call vote.
Janet, I.
John, I.
Michael, I.
Ryan, I.
Helen, I.
Okay, motion carries 5. Okay, next order of business.
What are we on now?
Special town meeting.
Yep. Let me get there first. Okay. All right, so the memo in your packet, I drafted it. And just to have an update on it, so during the course of speaking with Charlie, Mary, and Lisa, they're asking for as much time as possible before we have the town meeting. So we do have to have town meeting before December 15th. Because that's when the legislation expires, that allows us to change some of the specifics regarding town meeting. And so it would probably be, from the sound of it, the December, what did I say? Is it December 3rd or December 4th? Is that Saturday? Anyways, the first week of December. And then I would like to, yeah, the first week of December is when we'd most likely have the town meeting. All right, so Mike.
I guess I'm just wondering about the venue for that town meeting and if we would be able to have still a reduced quorum at that time, as far as legislation goes. Maybe Danny knows.
So that is why we'd have to have it before December 15th. So that we are allowed to have a reduced quorum until December 15th, and we are allowed to hold town meeting outside of town bounds through the 15th of December. So if we want to take advantage of either of those provisions, that's why we would need to have town meeting before then.
Okay.
Okay.
And just a follow-up question, I guess through you to Charlie. Is this, I mean, clearly it would be easier to do it outdoor if it was earlier. This would most definitely be driving us inside. Is your sense that we need until December to do this?
Yeah, yes. I think even, just you have a sense from talking to Lisa and Mary earlier in the evening that we just have a huge task ahead of us. So, I've talked about the fact that I'm a little concerned about, some of the funding issues that we utilize to, submit, get a budget approved at the June 26th town meeting. The more we peel away the layers of the onion, there'll be more clarity, whether my instinctual concern is real or not. I'm hoping I'm probably just nervous nilly about this stuff. So we need as much time as we possibly can. Now, also, as Mary, I think, talked about in a lot of detail, is a lot of data that we have to present to the state to get the tax rate set to certify free cash. And more time is incredibly valuable for that process. So yeah, the maximum amount of time is going to be important here.
Okay, and it's interesting that we can go outside of town bounds because we certainly don't have a venue to accommodate it in the town of Wellfleet. We know what the gym's like. So, I guess we'll talk about that at some point, but thanks.
Okay, Danny?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Ryan and I did talk offline a little bit about this a couple of weeks ago. The only venue that I can envision that might be big enough that is nearby enough might be the gym at the high school. I haven't gone to high school. I think Ryan and Mike are probably a whole lot closer to that than I've ever been in terms of knowing the size of that. My guess is that it's probably twice the size of the elementary school gym, and with a reduced quorum, that might be possible. You have to remember that even if we do reduce the quorum, we still have to make provisions for anybody who wants to come to town meeting. So, my hope is that by December, we're going to be back to, perhaps where we were this summer in terms of case counts and things like that. But That's really far from certain at this point. Clearly we can't do an outdoor meeting in December. I don't think there's any realistic way to do that. And having talked to Charlie, realistically, I don't think there's a way that we can do a meeting a whole lot sooner than that. Once we get past the end of September, I think an outdoor meeting is iffy at best. So I think we're going to have to look at a venue that's big enough to accommodate, our normal attendance, which is somewhere in the neighborhood of, between 200 and 250, even if we do reduce the quorum. Remember, we reduced the quorum last September and we had an attendance of 200. So we can start to talk to the Nauset High School and find out, what's involved in using that venue. And if somebody else has knows of a location that I'm not aware of, I think it would be good to start working on that. But I think we do need to be prepared for the fact that A, we're probably going to want to be indoors, and B, we may still want to need to provide some sort of safety or spacing. So aside from that, I'm fine with the dates otherwise in terms of any conflicts. Thank you.
Okay, John?
Yes, I'm fully on board, by the way, with Charlie's statement as to time requirements. It's the job he's got ahead of him, and that the three of them have ahead of them. They'll be doing well to accomplish by December. And having said that, given that we have to meet indoors, why do we need to reduce the quorum?
So I'll answer that. The issue is, if, let's say in December, if we don't have 182, is it 188 or 182?
That might change between now and December.
Yeah.
It's roughly it's 180 something. But,
Yeah.
187.
Yeah, so if we don't hit that number, then basically town meeting can't open at all, unless we modify the quorum. So if that answers your question, John.
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay, Helen?
Yeah, what about the theater in the Eastham Nauset School? That's huge, and the ventilation in it is good. I've been at some really big meetings there. And the spacing, the gradient of the seats, the rake of the theater also provides a kind of separation. That's one possibility. And yeah, the most important thing is that we get whatever comes to town meeting right. It's part of the untangling the mess. And however late it needs to be in the season, although it would be really nice to have another town meeting outdoors to do this, we can't do it. And having people out when it's that cold, talk to the people in Provincetown who met in November, forget it. Thank you.
Yeah, Helen, if I may, through you, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we did meet at the theater at the high school up until the new gym was built. When I moved to town in the 70s, that is where we had our meetings. And it's not as big a venue as you might think. I think the gym is a lot bigger in terms of actual space. Again, Ryan and Mike, you're a lot closer to having attended that school. I'm assuming you went there. I might be wrong about that, but I think the gym is a bigger space than the
There's no
auditorium.
rake.
I think
There's no rake.
Okay, Janet?
There's also the Orleans Middle School. And I think we just, before discussing this too long, just call the schools and find out what the capacity is in each of these areas and go with the biggest one. And yeah, I was just going to say what Danny said. We used to have town meeting at the high school auditorium. So, and yeah, I don't see a lot of people wanting to turn out in December. A lot of people might not be here. So, yep, we've got to schedule it. So let's just find out the capacity in all three places.
Okay. Mike?
Yeah, I was just gonna say about the size. I was at the last time I was at the high school was for the Turnip Fest right before the pandemic there, and it's definitely at least 3 times the size of the gym in Wellfleet because there's that back rubber court. Both those basketball
Oh, yeah,
are huge, and then where the stands are, there's more room behind that too. So depending on if those were folded forward, I would say may even be around 4 times the size of our space, square footage wise, at least 3 times. So, and then the other thing is just to John's question about the quorum, when we set the quorum at 100, we still have to allow for the maximum amount that could possibly come for town meeting. So by reducing the quorum, we're not at all limiting the number of people that can come to town meeting, just that have to be there in order to make these statutory requirements to amend our budget, stuff like that.
Okay, John?
Yeah, through you to Mike, I understand that. I am just not comfortable with this trend toward going to a lower quorum for town meeting, especially if we're looking at a larger building than what we're normally accustomed to meeting in. And given the importance of the stuff we're going to be talking about, I just don't think that's a positive trend. And I think this is, unless there's a real issue as that date gets closer with an uptick in infections, I really think we need to think twice about that.
Danny?
Yeah, I just, it might be worth trying to engage John offline on this, but, reducing the quorum does not limit anybody's ability to come to town meeting, nor does it mean that that somehow the decision is going to be made by fewer people than would normally make the decision. It just gives the town the guarantee that the meeting can go forward. There are towns that have a 0 quorum, and there was quite a few towns actually went to a 0 quorum, and they found that it increased attendance because people know that business is going to get conducted whether they show up or not. And there's in a way, kind of a perverse incentive to get people to come to town meeting when they know that the meeting is going to take place because either 0 quorum or low quorum. So I think your concerns. I mean, what I'm hearing in your concern, and again, we can talk about this a bit more. What I'm hearing is your concern that the decision is going to be made by a minority of voters. But remember that just because the number that makes up a quorum has changed, it doesn't limit anyone's ability to come to that meeting and participate if they have the interest. The business of the town does need to get done.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I understand that it doesn't limit the number of people that can attend. I get that.
Okay, Helen?
Very quickly, John, I get it. These big, expensive votes get made by so few people anyway. I mean, 300 people and there are over 3,000 voters. It gives me the creeps too. But you know what? I've been at town meetings where people have had to call people to show up to make a quorum. And this particular special is really crucial to our coming out on top of this difficult financial situation that we've been in. And it is therefore somewhat time sensitive.
Okay.
Okay, so for the board, I would like permission to send the memo I had drafted, except with the modifications to the dates. That the likely date is December 4th, 2021. The warrant will close on October 30th, 2021. And the article should be submitted to the board by October 8th, 2021.
You looking for a second?
Ryan?
Yep, go ahead.
You're asking to send this memo?
Yes. to all boards, committee. It's a
Okay,
the
all
one
right.
page memo. So,
Okay, I just didn't see where it was getting sent to.
yep.
To all boards and committee members. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, that's fine. This is to set the, I'm sorry, I glanced through this. Is this setting an exact date?
Not specifically,
Okay.
but you know, December 4th is really the latest, or you know, they need as much time as we can give them, and I'm not comfortable going much past December 4th, because if we have
Okay.
a snow, you know, if we have snow in December and we have to reschedule it.
Okay, the 4th is a Saturday. All right, I just didn't
Yep.
check the date. I didn't know we were voting to specify a date for sure, not tonight, so.
Yeah,
it's
it's
okay.
not for sure. It's just the most.
It's a tentative date.
Yep.
A tentative date. Okay, that's fine.
So then, one more thing, can somebody make a quick call and just see if that great big gigantic venue is going to be available on that day before we approve?
Yeah, of
that
course.
date? Yeah, but he's wanting to send it with a date in it. Thank you.
Yeah, it's just to provide clarity to the boards and committees of the town so that they know when to get stuff to us, and so that they can plan.
And
Right.
staff.
Yep.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead, Mike.
Can I just make a suggestion that maybe rather than sending this memo, we just send a date by which all warrant articles should be submitted to the select board for the annual town meeting with a tentative date set at December 4th, just so that, you know, everyone actually reads it. Not that, you know, yeah, I just, you know, or maybe along with it, some very like sort of truncated, these are the dates, get your stuff in, because oftentimes things just go past.
Yeah,
people.
so it's not the part that's highlighted. It's the single page memo. It's 2 paragraphs.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yep.
That was a
It-
whole
it
basically
basically has just what
All
just
right,
what you said.
I apologize.
Short and
Okay.
sweet.
All right. I thought it was the highlighted memo.
Nope.
I didn't even notice that one down there. All right. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Which highlighted memo?
It's not the highlighted one. It's the so
It's 2 paragraphs, right?
yep, just those
Okay.
2 paragraphs.
Will you please check it for spelling and stuff? Thank you. Or typos or whatever, please. Thank you.
Okay, the motion's been made and seconded, I believe.
I don't think there was a second.
I second.
Second, Helen.
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Janet, I.
John, I.
Michael, I.
Ryan, I.
Warren, I.
Okay, motion carries 5-0.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Danny.
Yeah, just so that for the rest of the board, in addition to the time limits that Ryan delineated in the memo in terms of when petition articles, the board needs to be aware of the statutory posting requirements for town meeting as well, so that you need to get your act together so that the warrant is closed and posted. I believe that it's 45 days, although don't quote me on that, but that means that you're going to have your work on the warrant ready to close the warrant sometime around the end of October, beginning of November, somewhere in there. Charlie, do you remember what the requirement is at 45 days? Is that?
I can answer that. So the charter specifies a special town meeting that the date be set not less than 45 days ahead of time.
Okay.
But it also additionally specifies that citizen initiative petitions can be submitted up until 35 days from the date of town meeting. Or
So you've still got a little bit of time to set the date, but you are going to have to set the date by the end of October.
Yes.
More or less. Okay. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Okay. So onto the policy on remote participation, just to update the board. this policy actually was not sent out for comment. Only the town media policy was sent out for comment. And so
Oh,
the best solution we have is probably to make a motion to send it back out for comment. And hopefully correspond with the other one. So that would be the end of August. So that would be August 30th, I believe. Are there any questions on it?
I mean, are we commenting it on it now, or are we just?
No, on to if we should send it back out for comment, like yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I just, what's the date today? The 10th? Yeah, the end of August. I think that's enough time.
Yeah.
August 30th?
August 30th is when the other ones due.
Okay. So I move to send the policy on remote participation out for comment with the return day of August 30th.
Second.
Helen.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Can we have a roll call vote?
Janet, I.
John, I.
Michael, I.
Brian, aye.
Helen, I.
Okay, motion carries 5-0.
Ryan, it's
Yep.
Helen.
Go ahead.
I wasn't saying no, no, no to any of you. There was a bird that was throwing itself against the window. Okay.
Okay. All right, so town administrator search. So Charlie, if you may.
Hi, everybody. So not that I'm anxious about this, but it's really, an important conversation to start. And I think in just relative to me, I'm here to serve the town and you as long as you want me to. There's no great pressure. There was a period of time I was worried about how the retirement law affected my schedule, but I've been managing within the law, and so there's no urgency on my part, of course. But I do think there is an urgency in that having a permanent, really full-time, fully engaged town administrator is better for the town than me working 4 days a week. But clearly the issues of us clarifying and resolving a lot of the fiscal concerns are going to be important in relative to the timeline that utilize for the town manager, town administrator search process. So these are complications that we'll slowly work our way through. I think that what I did was I did serve on the town manager search committee in Provincetown. And so I really took a lot of the information that we used up there and put it into this package for you to consider. And I think it really, some of the critical things that you need to talk about as a select board is, do you want to create a search committee as a temporary committee for this process? And then, so I think you need to talk about that issue. And then if you did, what would the charge of that committee be? And then the other thing is, would you want to engage the services of an executive search consultant to assist in that process? Because we would have to go out and receive quotes for services from vendors. And I have sort of formulated a draft request for qualifications, for you to look at and talk about. So I think, that's really the critical issues right now. What's the timeline you want to use? I did talk to the search consultant that we used in Provincetown just because it was recent and I thought we had a good process. And, you know, this process can take 12 to 18 weeks, depending upon a number of variables. And then, of course, once you were to select somebody, there is a good chance that he or she might have to relocate, you know, to the Cape or to this area. And that has complications. A lot of town manager, town administrator contracts, like my contract in Brewster indicated that I had to give, I think, a 3-month notice if I was going to be leaving. So towns vary, contracts vary, but you know, there can be some more complicated factors as we start down this road.
Okay. Helen?
Yeah, this will be my 4.5 go round. Charlie, respectfully, I consider you to be the half simply because you are working, you know, really hard, but you're not here forever. And we didn't go through a whole process with you, as you remember. It was like frighteningly quick, but
Yeah,
it worked out.
it was
Oh, wait,
even for me.
yeah, here's where I'm going with this. We absolutely have to have a pre-screening committee because there are people who will not apply if they think their bosses will know about it. I think the thing that I would like to be talking with the board about at length, not tonight, I would assume, was whether or not we really need a consultant. Because I've now experienced working with a number of them. And Janet, through you, Ryan, to Janet, you were on a pre-screening committee too. I was on one for Paul Seeloff. Weren't you on a pre-screening committee?
Yes, I was. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you have a good pre-screening committee, and we have some people who are very used to doing it now, they can do a very good job if the secretarial work of advertising and so forth, which we paid quite a lot for that consultant that we had last time, who I felt okay about. But I would really like the board to take a close look with you, Charlie, at exactly what the chores that we could easily do ourselves. The main thing is that, to use your words or a version of what you said, we really want to have the financial situation stabilized and known by the departments before we ask somebody to come in. And I don't want to start this process earlier than we should, given that we need to have things straightened out so that we don't have somebody coming in and it's all kind of a rocky road for him or her. Thank you.
Janet?
I just want to say that being with both the screening and the hiring of a consultant it's a matter of time. And with the screening committee, it took a long time and long meetings, and we had to read I think we got 75 applications for the one I was on, and we narrowed it down pretty quickly, but it takes a lot of time. And to be honest, I think all the processes, end up being about the same. And what we really have to consider and have a talk about is, the relationship of the town administrator with the select board and department heads and things like that. So I'm fine with either of them. I think it's really a matter of how much time getting a community together, getting them working together, and then having them produce a number of candidates and narrowing it down. It just takes time. So that's one reason why we went with the consultant last year. It's because we didn't have time. And with COVID, it was hard. That's another thing, is with interviewing people, you have to consider COVID and that kind of situation. So.
Okay, John?
Yes, I personally see no benefit or need for hiring an outside consultant. I think the important thing is to work closely with Charlie in putting together a good search committee, and then following the suggestions of that search committee. And you know, keep it, the search committee, an outside consultant, not from Wellfleet. I don't see that as having good results in the past. I don't see any reason why that would be different now. I think we should work with Charlie. We should use people from here to help us find a town administrator and then follow the suggestions of that search committee. Thank you.
Okay, Mike?
Yeah, I'm a little unsure about whether we should use a consultant or not. I know last time it didn't work out very well. Also, everything sort of fell apart in the middle of that search. One thing I'm a little concerned about we had a consultant and we had a screening committee last time, and the way things sort of went, it kind of narrowed down to 2 people, and we had to make a decision on a fairly short basis with remote interviews. And I don't think that that's a tenable situation. We you know, hindsight 2020, we really should have met in person. But at the time, it didn't seem like a viable option. But I don't see it going that way again. And I do think that there is some value to hiring a consultant in the recruitment process to get, you know, applicants to apply for the position. But that said, I'm a little torn because it didn't work out last time for us. It also didn't work out for Truro or Provincetown in their previous searches. All you know, one right after the other, and I think all of us used the same consultant. So I don't know. You know, I'm torn, but I think there is some value in it. I think, you know, the recruiting process, there's some value. I don't know that I would go the same route that we went last time. And I'd certainly like to hear more from our screening committee, if possible, before we make the actual final decision, because I feel like the screening committee does this sort of comprehensive search. And by the time it gets to the select board, we have just 2 or maybe 3 candidates without a whole lot of background going into it. And just a public interview process. So I'd like the process to be more robust.
Okay, so Charlie, you've been involved in a couple of different hirings for a town administrator, correct? Or manager?
Yep.
And I know the last one for Provincetown, they used both a screening committee and a consultant. What typically have you seen that's produced the best results?
Well, I did serve in the Provincetown search committee process. I also chaired the search for the Barnstable County administrator a few years ago. And I've done, you know, a few other assistant town administrator positions. But anyway, the reality is you're going to have a committee that's going to be doing a lot of diligent, you know, evaluation, review. Someone has to coordinate that process. And in Provincetown, I was really happy in particular with that process. We received over 100, north of 120 applications. And and there were a number of them that I thought were highly qualified and, you know, really interesting. But, you know, it takes a lot of effort to educate the clientele out there who might be interested about the community and what's going on. Now, up in Provincetown, we created a profile, included an interview process with stakeholders and town officials about what they were looking for in a chief administrative officer. And it really provided a good basis, I thought, to identify the needs of the community. And it was a good tool that we distributed to prospective applicants. And then our consultant in Provincetown's case was a salesperson for this position and had a lot of communications, you know, with prospective applicants. And I'm just thinking, you know, if we try to do it internally, we can. But if we try to do it internally, you're going to already overburden a burdened office that we're having a hard time keeping up with what we're dealing with now. And that's going to all happen when we're putting a town meeting warrant together and you know, for the fall, and then working on the town budget and the capital plan. So my instinct is to recommend that you do hire somebody, and that you have a search committee made up of whatever size and dimensions you want in terms of feedback, but it's a lot of work. And then the good thing about the consultant is when we get down to a series of finalists, then there's a heavier effort in terms of background checks. It's not a complete background check, but it's a more robust review of these applicants' experiences and background. And, you know, it seems to me that you would want at least 3 finalists. That seems pretty normal and reasonable. And those 3 finalists would have a much more deep dive in terms of background and references in the process. But you know, we can do it internally, but it's a lot of work to do it right.
Okay, Helen?
Yeah, so some of my experience, maybe I can say our experience with the last consultant was in part very good. The background checks, that's a chore, it's a task, but it could be a limited use of a consultant to do things like that. The description, the position statement that was sent out was so off to one side of what Wellfleet is that it was surprising to me. And yet I liked very much the interviews that, you know, all the select board had with the people that worked for that consulting firm. My experience with the first consulting firm where I was the chair of that pre-screening committee, I would not use that consultant again. It was not good without going into particulars. But I want to double down on what Janet said. It's a lot of work. It's very intense for the pre-screening committee. And there's this time factor, which is you can get applicants and you can have like 5 or 6 really likely people, and they're applying other places and you can lose them. So once we start this process and receive the applications, that pre-screening committee has to really meet hot and heavy. And then the select board has to get right on the stick with it. Because I remember very clearly that we lost 2 applicants because the then select board, this is back in 2007, 2008, something like that, didn't meet soon enough on the finalists. You've got to jump on it because they'll just go somewhere else. Thank you.
Okay, Chief Polly?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I articulated some of this, my thoughts a few meetings ago. I understand what Charlie's saying. It's a lot of work. Perhaps to use a consultant to do the advertising, to do the profile description that the select board would approve. That's probably a pretty good idea. I don't have an issue with that. I think that's actually some well thought out things to do. But I will say again, I've only been here for 8 years, and I've been through now 4 town administrators, not including my short interim longest, never mind. No one knows the town of Wellfleet better than the people that work and live and are on committees for the town of Wellfleet. So I would respectfully request that the select board really consider the pre-screening committee to include a department head or 2, member of the FinCom, a couple of residents, no more than 7 maximum committee members. 5 is, in my view, better. But let the folks that know Wellfleet, live in Wellfleet, work in Wellfleet, give you our best information upon screening, so many 15 or 16 applicants, and then present hopefully 5 good ones to the select board for final interviews. That's my best recommendation, and I feel pretty strongly about it, and I thank you.
Okay, Chief Hurley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be really brief. I also echo what Chief Pauly stated. This will be my 3rd administrator search for Wellfleet, and last year I was on the town administrator search in Harwich as a citizen. And I got to be honest, a lot of these recruitment companies, I understand the burden to the admin staff for a lot of the stuff, but it just seems like they keep circulating around candidates from community to community. And I think that if we can give administration the support they need for advertising, questions, background checks, and so forth, but leave, as the chief and some others have stated, really screening the candidates up to those of us that work and live in Wellfleet. I really think that would be a huge benefit. And as a second aside, and this is for a very selfish thing, I've been chief since November of 2019, and this is the most stability in the last 90 days I've had as your department head here with Charlie, Lisa, and Mary. So, if there's a way we can carry them almost into town meeting next April to keep that continuity as we bring a new administrator on board. Again, very selfish, but it's really, it's been so positive. Staff sees it, and your employees see it. So I just wanted to throw that out there too. Thank you.
Okay, Janet.
So the best way to retain employees is to give them a pay raise, right? And yeah, I want to clarify what everybody's saying. So with the last town administrator search, when we hired a consulting firm, there was a town local search committee that worked with the consulting firm. And I think there was 5 people from town, longtime people, experience, and they worked with them and worked with the job description and everything. And then after some candidates were whittled down, then the department heads interviewed the different candidates. Different committees interviewed them. So there is that process where everybody was involved to a certain point. And I think that would happen this time too. The consulting firm is not doing this blindly. And if Helen remembers, they did send out a very full, detailed survey to all the select persons and maybe other people in town too, saying, describe your town, what do you want to see? And the last comment I'll make is that what Charlie said about staff being kind of worked hard these last few months is you're going to have somebody really doing all the background checks. And I mean, I'm just not sure who we have on staff that can get us through town meeting and everything, and also do Corey checks. And if, I mean, there's a lot to it. So that's it. I don't care either way. I think either process, works. So good thing, bad thing, who knows?
Okay, Helen.
Yeah, for the Dan Horde hire, we had, once the finalists were chosen and it became public, we had the staff as well as the select board
Right, staff
interview.
too, yeah.
And I went to those meetings. In other words, I went as an observer, but I learned a lot from the staff's questions. And then the staff recommended, their first picks. But, the query checks and the background checks, you can contract that out. I mean, you can hire people there are people that just do that.
We know what that means, yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, thank you.
Okay, John,
Yes,
I think we lost you, John.
He froze.
I did.
Oh, John.
Okay.
Oh, well, so we're going on 3 hours, so.
Yep. Charlie,
Yeah, thanks. I was, couple of things. Helen is so right. I mean, being efficient with this process, I mean, people are, when they're applying for this job, they're applying for 10 other jobs. So being, having a schedule, keeping with it, making sure you have committee members that can meet the timeline that you all established is critical. And then the other thing I was going to say is, I personally, I like the idea of a department head, frankly, being on the committee. I think it has a lot of value for a number of reasons. It gives credibility to the process in terms of, staff involvement. And yeah, I know you're going to include staff later on, but even in the process, I think it has value because let's face it, we're trying to tell a story about this town and what a wonderful place it is to work. And, I think it is. I mean, I've met some incredible people here. So we need to, create a narrative that's reflective of that. And I frankly, I would like to serve, I just want to say it, I would like to serve on your search committee. I think I can help. I do know a lot of folks in the community and I do know what the job is. And so I'm just saying, in case I didn't ask directly, I'd love to serve on your committee. So.
okay, Mike,
Yeah, I just think that we need to have we need to do this right. And I think we need to have some consulting services and, whether it needs to be to a degree that there is that sort of outreach and all, but also last time we had just a screening committee and the consultant. And Charlie, you said in Provincetown they used a search committee and a consultant. So the search committee had more engagement. The other thing is that, like, I don't know if it's possible, but I'd like access to the interviews that the screening committee does of the candidates that they put forward to us. And I don't know if that's legal or if that can happen in any way at all. But, that was, I think, you, as a select board member, you kind of miss what happened prior to getting the applicants in front of you.
okay, John. You're muted, by the way.
Can I go while he's trying to get unmuted?
I'd prefer to let John.
there I go. There I go. I lost my internet connection. I apologize. So yeah, I had that question for Chief Hurley, but the comment I had was I had to do with the town staff weighing in on this, and I don't see anything at all in the town charter that that places the responsibility for selecting the town administrator on anyone other than the select board.
Right.
No.
But you have other people helping you and interviewing people but we in the end, the select board in the end votes who they want.
Essentially, John, if I may, Ryan.
Go ahead, Mike.
Essentially, the town administrator is working on behalf of the select board if we don't hire a consulting firm, it would go through a lot of this, the actual logistics would fall on the town administration to take care of, because the select board can only meet in open session regarding those types of things. Every decision would have to be made with a quorum. The sort of activities, the administrative activities of the select board fall on the town administration to carry out. And that's why utilizing a consulting firm to some degree, it takes all those administrative tasks of doing the recruiting, the advertising for the town, the outreach to candidates who are maybe interested in applying off the backs of either the administration or if all that work were to be handed down to a search committee without any paid firm to do that stuff. All that administration has to take place, and the select board does not do that administration.
Okay, well, I understand that. No, I was speaking more toward the role of town staff. It was mentioned that in the last, I think it was the last selection process of a town administrator, the town staff was polled as to their, what their pick would be, and the impression I had is that played a role in how the select board voted, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the point I made was that there's nothing in the town charter that requires us to poll town employees regarding the selection of a town administrator. That's really our job. And I think we ought to be really careful about that going forward.
Okay, Helen,
as to a
Oh,
consultant, I understand your point, Mike, and I think it's possibly a good one, and especially given the administrative aspect of it, that we could put on a hired consultants instead of taking on ourselves. That makes some sense.
Okay, Helen, if you can keep it brief.
I can keep it brief. Pre-screening committee is usually a motley crew. I think 7 is a good number. We just did this last year, so it's all very fresh in our minds, John. But it isn't like you poll staff. It's that in one instance, for one hire of one town administrator, pre-screening committee did all their work. They submitted the finalists. I think more rather than less is good, unless the applicants are impossible. Last time, really only 2 seemed acceptable to the pre-screening committee, and they handed them to the select board. But back in the day, there was then 2 meetings of, 2 meetings of staff. It was everybody on staff, pretty much. And they interviewed those finalists. They weren't polled. They simply there were more people asking more good questions, and the select board benefited from that, but they didn't make their decisions based on those meetings with staff. That's one way it could happen, but you definitely do need some staff on the pre-screening committee, in my opinion, in my experience. Thank you.
Okay,
Is
Mike.
that enough?
I don't have my hand up anymore, Ryan.
Okay, so I just want to make it clear to people that this is going to be a process. It's going to take time to even set up the, how we want to have this process play out. The job description, I guess maybe we have to review the job description of the TA. And if it takes basically from the time that we're ready as a board, if it takes, the 12 to 18 weeks for the rest of the process to play out. At 18 weeks, if we did it basically now, and had everything ready right now, we're talking about, early January would be when the final pick would be made. And then it might take them a little while before they can start work as well. So, the sooner that we can lay the groundwork for this, the better. Just in terms of our timelines, because otherwise, if we hold off too long, we're talking about, somebody starting, basically, as Wellfleet gets busy again. And I prefer to have somebody come in before we hit our peak of the season. That's just personal preference. But I do really understand that we need to have our house in order in order for the position to be attractive. So we have to present to whatever candidates are out there that, all this work has been done or is nearing completion for it to be attractive to potential applicants. And on that, I would like to move on to select board reports. Does anybody have one?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, Helen.
Yeah, so I was delegated by the board to do a kind of limited follow-up and outreach to people that were at the roundtable, the DCR, DOT, MPO, et cetera, roundtable. And I copied you all with the little cover note that I sent to all of them. And I did it on the day that the Bike and Walkways Committee had finished their analysis. So I had the document and shared that with them. And of course, copied the, I checked in with them. So in doing outreach for updates for the different agencies and so forth, they all got that email. And I've only made phone contact with two of them. I left messages and so forth, so I'm still hearing back from people. So you didn't get a memo from me. I can give you one report from Jill McLaughlin at Stantec. And I also have to say that apparently, according to her, the town was sent what she described as two cross sections that the DOT was.
Helen,
Hold on,
Helen,
let me
no.
finish my report, please.
Before you get it, no. So the Route 6 Main Street intersection project will be on the agenda for August 24th.
Yes, I know that, but I'm making my report right now and I'm almost done, Ryan, okay?
Okay, I would also like to say that I don't know, my understanding of the conversation you might have had probably exceeded the bounds allowable.
Wait, with who?
With Stantec.
No, I contacted her. I asked her for an update. She started giving it to me. And I said I was going to be bringing it up briefly in a report this evening. And that's what I'm doing. And you cut me off, Ryan, before I was done. Okay. I mentioned the document that was sent, and I hope that we all get copied with it, but we're going to be meeting on it on the 24th, and you announced that, and that's fine. Okay.
Okay.
I also heard back from Paul Yanagi in an email, but he left for vacation before I could ask him what part of it I could communicate with the rest of you. It's a little more complicated, but you're going to get that. And I'm just telling you, giving you an update on what I was delegated to do. Okay.
Okay. So town administrators report, Charlie.
Thanks, everybody. So I'll just go through my report, try to be efficient with it. Relative to the media operations, I did have a meeting set up last week with the consultant, and I had a personal matter I had to deal with and I had to cancel it. I think it's been rescheduled for, yeah, it has been for this week. So a number of us are going to meet with these folks that do these operations in several other Lower Cape towns. So I should have a good report for you on the 24th about that. We have been in the process of, we've finished preliminary interviews already for the building commissioner's position this week, and we had second interviews today. So sort of along the lines that Helen talked about is, you know, we need to be efficient and timely and quick. So anyway, we're continuing our interview process for building commissioners, and we have some candidates that are interesting. I put in my report that we had advertised the DPW superintendent's position on August 6th, and I was wrong about that date. It actually isn't going in the paper until this Sunday, August 15th. But the most important point is we're going to try to move that process along in an expeditious manner. And we talked a little bit about that 6A Main Street intersection project. We've just talked about that, but you know, Ryan is already working with us to have that on the next select board agenda and talk about some of the issues and the alternatives that our consultants are working on with MassDOT. And I did give a little report on the marijuana community impact fee. We received another check in the amount of $3,741 from the Piping Clover, and they opened recently. So we'll keep you updated on those revenues because it's important and interesting to watch the trends on those on a quarterly basis. Carol, I did also participate in a meeting with a number of state, federal, and local officials set up by Carol Ridley on the Herring River restoration project. And it really is just a planning meeting to discuss strategies and opportunities for funding of this project as we go forward. So I am impressed. There's a really robust group of people who are working on that project on your behalf. I met with one of the Gigi Liskowski, the co-chair of the Wellfleet Cultural Council. And we talked about some of the issues with the contracting and so forth. And I think we had that under control, but we had a really nice conversation about the background and history of not only the council, but the Wellfleet Cultural District. We've already talked about the financial review study that is ongoing with the Department of Revenue. I did that earlier, so I won't repeat that. And then we have executed 2 CPA contracts. The first one was the $500,000 contribution that was authorized by town meeting for the Affordable Housing Trust. And then the Bakersfield Pavilion Stage project in the amount of $17,450. So that those things are moving along. And we just signed a purchase order for the lease purchase program for the police department body camera equipment in support. So thanks to Chief Hurley, who's been moving that project along as quickly as possible. So I think that's all I have right now. We have received some reimbursements for COVID-related costs, and I'll write that up in my next report.
Okay. Any questions for Charlie from the board? Nope. All right. Topics for future agendas?
I think, Ryan, we need to talk about fees.
Yep. So
And, oh, okay, so you know that because we've talked about it. And
yeah,
also,
it also has to be advertised as a public hearing.
okay. Okay. And I was also going to say, maybe an executive session about continuing some other topics of executive session.
Okay.
Get my
Helen?
drift?
Yep, Helen?
Aren't we having an executive session after
Yep,
this meeting?
Yep, yes.
Okay, so a couple things. We really need to approve, if not release, a number of executive session minutes before we all forget what's in them. And also the round table set of minutes, we still haven't seen. And then I have something for correspondence. Thank you. Oh,
Okay.
wait, and can we please look at a green burial option with the cemetery commissioners? I mean, if nothing else, it's a source of revenue, but I can't tell you how many people, are interested in this. So can we please have that as a, topic for us? Thank you. And when you get to correspondence, I have something too. Thanks.
Okay, John?
Yes, last week I had a conversation with Gabrielle Sirkolski, the Cape Cod Mosquito Control. I was curious about the fact that they had been finally, after years, given permission to start applying larvicide in the Herring River area, and didn't seem to be having that much of an effect. And I wanted to, actually, I had been meaning to talk with her anyway, just to learn more about what she does and what's going on in that area. And it became evident that one of the problems they're running into is not being allowed to cut footpaths into the area, even through the dead vegetation by the Duck Harbor Breach. So what I'd like to do, I mentioned that, discuss this with her, and I said I'd bring it up here, is to bring her and Superintendent Carlstrom to an upcoming meeting to see if we can come to a meeting of the minds as to getting permission for CCMC to get access into the areas that they need to treat so they can do their job.
Okay, all right. And then, okay, so correspondence and vacancies report, Helen?
Just if you, Ryan, or Charlie, or Jane Norton, or whoever got that document from Stantec, which Jill McLaughlin, I said to her, do you have an update? And she supplied that information. I didn't pump her for it. If we could, the whole board could get a copy of that, because really it's, it's an ongoing, it's breaking news and we need to see it and think about it. Thank you.
Yeah, she'll provide materials before our meeting on the 21st. So.
Material has already been received.
Okay, so
Thank you.
John?
Yes, I should have added, I don't know if it's appropriate for me to do it, but if it is, I'll be happy to be the one to reach out to Gabrielle and to Brian.
Okay, I'll have to figure out when we might be able to handle that. So minutes.
I sent Helen edited the minutes. I also made some edits and sent that along in a Google Doc. I don't know if you guys all got that. It's the
No,
same.
I didn't get it.
It went to the VOS
Yeah.
email address.
Got it.
Yep, I got it.
Is it an email?
Yeah.
Okay, when did you say, give me the time? I'm looking right now.
5:30 or so, maybe
Oh.
6. So I have
Yeah.
a question before we
I
get
had
into.
no idea what that was. Mike, what is this? How do I open it? I just click on open.
Open it and it opens.
Whatever happened to just an email? Okay, hold on.
Well, it was your Google Doc, and I didn't want to go back.
No, it was a Word doc. But never mind. Here I am. Oh, I see. There was any issue with respect to the notice.
Okay, so
I see that. That's
let's
good.
take care of the June
Yeah.
22nd and July 13th first, because July 27th, there are amendments too. Does anybody have any issues with the minutes for June 22nd or July 13th?
As amended.
as printed in our packet.
Yeah,
Okay, so I move to approve the minutes of June 22nd, 2021, and July 13th, 2021, as printed in our packet.
Second,
Roll call vote.
Janet, I.
John, I.
Michael, I.
Ryan, I.
Helen, I.
Okay, 5-0, the motion carries 5-0. The minutes of July 27th, 2021.
So, Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Shoot.
You know, Helen and Michael were definitely more involved in these minutes and the events of these minutes. And I'm just, you know, don't take it the wrong way, but I'm wondering if you guys listen to the tape recording to get these corrections, because they seem pretty precise, and I just want to make sure that this is all the right wording and everything.
Ryan, may I answer that through you to Janet?
You can just say yes or no.
Yeah, I can't raise my hand because I'm looking at the minutes. Yes, I did that. And in one case, listening to Attorney Corvo, I did it twice. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for doing that.
I also listened to the meeting and transcribed
Okay.
word for word.
Can I make a motion?
So would it be the minutes as amended? As amended,
Yeah.
twice amended?
And presented in tonight's, well, no, because some of them aren't in the packet. All right, never mind.
Yeah, we could just be amending them on the floor, you know, legally. So,
Yeah.
you know, at least we're looking at it. I move that we approve the minutes of July 27th, 2021 as amended.
Second,
Roll call vote.
Janet, I.
John, I.
Michael, I.
Ryan, I.
Helen, I.
Okay. So we are onto executive session. So I move to enter into executive session pursuant to MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21, effective July 1st, 2010. 6, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real estate if the chair declares that open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the position of the public body.
Helen, second.
Roll call vote.
Janet, I.
John, I.
Michael, I.
Ryan, I.
Helen, I.
Okay, and then can we please lock the room? And
Did you say not going back into public session?
I did not.
Okay. I move that after, will you do a motion for that, please? We have to.
I moved to amend the motion to say, and to not to re-enter public session.
Second, Helen.
Okay, roll call vote.
Janet, I.
John, I.
Michael, I.
Okay, Karen, you have your hand up?
Ryan, I. Helen, I.
Yes. Yes. Do you want me to take everybody out that isn't a
Yes.
member, and do you want me to stop recording? Stop recording?
Everybody that's not a member of the board, please remove, and I guess stop recording just because.
Kathleen.
Kathleen, I believe.
Leave Kathleen, yes.
Yeah, and please do record it because it's hard to remember just from my, notes or whatever.
Okay, they just have to be really careful when they're posting the video.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna have to edit the video and clip it.
Just a heads up to
There's somebody still in here,
Yeah,
Diane.
Yeah, wait a second, John.
I have to. And who else did you want me to leave in?
Just Kathleen and Charlie.
Charlie.
Okay.
Hi, can I say something? Can you hear me? Susie Nielsen?
We covered yours earlier.
You did? I tried to get on early and I couldn't get on. So
Okay.
I've been on. I just wanted to make sure that it got passed or if you had any questions.
Yes,
but-
it was approved.
Okay. Sorry to bother you then. I just didn't want it to not pass. Okay, I'll get off the phone now.
Yep.
Thank you.
Just a heads up to Karen, there's a chance that I might drop off again. I'm having some internet issues, so if I have to log back on, let me in.
Oh, yeah, I will. I'm just trying to get everybody off that shouldn't be here and they're not getting off. So I've got to take them off each one at a time. So give me a couple of seconds. Who's Arthur?
He needs to be removed. Yep. All right, and can you lock the room? You kicked
How do you lock?
Kathleen.
We
You
just
kicked
lost.
Kathleen. So tell her rejoin. You have to let Kathleen back in.
Do you have her phone number,
Okay.
Ryan?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And Helen's
Okay,
gone
so-
too.
Sorry.
Okay.
Hey,
Okay, and Helen.
Helen will have to dial back in. She'll be all right. We'll let her in.
does she dial in?
No.
Okay.
Okay. And then I don't know how to lock the room. How do we do that?
Where you admit people, there's an option to lock it. But you have to wait until Helen and Kathleen can rejoin to lock it.
Okay, I see it. I found it. I won't do it until they get back in. Didn't know about this, so I've got it.
Michael just disappeared into the water.
Swam back in.
How does that work? I still don't,
It's just if you do a
technology.
video thing and whatever you can just
Background.
behind you. It's
Yeah,
just-
but why is it 3-dimensional? Or why, how can you move into it?
It's just a green screen, so if you step back like 3 feet from your screen, you'll disappear,
Okay.
Okay.
I guess.
So is the room locked right now or is it open?
No, it is not locked. I have not locked it.
Okay, so neither Kathleen or Helen can rejoin because it says the host removed them.
So they have to go log back in, right? As you know, they have to go back to the link and rejoin. And then she'll admit them.
So we're in executive session right now.
We are technically.
Voted, enter it.
Technically. Hmm.
Drink wine yet?
I was gonna say, can we have wine in the executive session? There's no law against it, I don't think.
No. I guess not. Where do you think I go every time I disappear?
Yeah. Well,
Um,
I was eating dinner tonight, here and there. I had a very late day and something came up and I kind of got behind everything. So when I disappeared, I was eating a little bit and not shifting around.
It won't let Helen in.
Yep.
Karmic.
Yeah, it's not letting Kathleen in either.
Okay, how do we do this? So,
Karen, can you generate a new link and send it to him?
we'll
That
all get kicked out. Or
Yeah, yeah. So they can't hear us, right? Because
No.
sometimes you lose the
Yes,
video.
you
but
know,
you-
Isn't this a continuous link that's used every time?
Should be.
Yes,
Same
Yes,
link
it
every
is.
week? Well, if
Yes.
it's end the meeting and then we all rejoin.
okay, I can end
Yeah.
it.
We'll just end we're in executive session. Doesn't matter if we disappear for a second. So if we all leave the
Okay,
meeting, end the
yeah,
meeting.
I'll end it.
Okay, then we'll all join.
We're all gonna leave, right?
Yes.
No one.
You leave first. Okay.